Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host who can't stay in his freaking seat even at the beginning of the show. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Hello, friends.
Like it's just unbelievable. I said, all right, for everybody, a little behind the scenes, for everybody here, 30 seconds before we're gonna go live, I say, all right, we're gonna go. We're ready to go. And he's like, okay, and then he just gets up out of his chair and like walks away. And I'm like,
what?
I don't even know.
I'm ready.
What are you doing?
I'm ready.
Okay. Also joining us this week, it's Heywo Twitch. What's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
Yo.
Back from LVO. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, my first LVO. I'll take any excuse to go to Vegas, and this is a good excuse. It was a ton of fun.
Excellent.
What were initial impressions? 20 seconds.
20 seconds?
Yes.
It's a hard limit. You can spend more than 20 seconds.
You can.
Lots of 40K. People recognized me, and some people wanted pictures, which I found quaint in the extreme.
Deeply unsettling is how I feel when they're like, hey, can I get a photo with you? I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Not exactly like known for my looks, right? Like in a good way. So the picture, I could say something insightful maybe, like, and you could write that down, and that'd be probably the same as the picture. But I'll give you a pun. How about?
There you go. Right on. All right. So today, of course, we brought on the master because last week we had done an episode where we saved Warhammer. So that's done. That's done and dusted.
Warhammer is now saved, so we're good.
Right. I mean, we're fine there. But there was one army that we left off, and that was Beastclaw Raiders. And the reason we left that off is because, look, on this show, we've been accused of ignoring Beastclaw Raiders. There's been multiple discussions of sort of across the meta and armies, and Beastclaw Raiders just doesn't come up. And you know what? You're right. It is a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy to ignore these. Is it
really an army?
Right. This pseudo army. Yeah, I mean, it's more of an army than Chaos Dwarves, so it's got that going for it.
It's more an ally for mixed destruction with one Frost Lord.
But we have decided to put that down, to put that to bed, to focus on Beastclaw tonight. We're going to give them their due, finally. It's time for the Everwinter to as it is the depth of winter here, and I'm pretty sick of it. It seems like the perfect time of year to do this show. So that's what we're going to talk about. But of course, first the news. Tommy, what do we got?
Oh, news.
That's the first part of this show, Tom. You remember the thing we've done more than 200 times. I mean, even you've done it more than 200 times at this point.
News.
Yep.
Rumor engine. Ends. Rumor engines.
Sure, yes. So they're doing a thing now this week where the Demon Engine has gotten control of it. And obviously in leading up to the, inevitably like the release of the 40K stuff here. We'll start with this one. Okay. New Chaos Space Marine plate, right?
Sure.
That is a Space Marine like plating.
You're pretty sure on that.
Well, I mean, it looks just like this one over here on this Chaos Space Marine that I've got, except this one's not of a particular god, but yes, it looks like a butt plate, but it could be a front plate or a side plate, but it's got the shape of the butt plate, which
could
means
be
he's got an angry face on his butt.
Could be the front shoulder of like a Juggernaut or something as well, like a particularly chaosed up one.
Sure. Yeah. That stacked plate is very much like a butt plate. That's how that looks. But then you see that same plating stack in a couple of other places.
Okay.
Yep. So we're gonna get, and then since the Demon Engine got control, they're doing spoilers of all sorts of chaos stuff in advance of the.
One would assume Chaos Demons.
Well, yeah, in advance of the Chaos Space Marine launch, the Black Legion launch. So here we have a Panda Claw in Space Marine armor.
This is what I want to know about. This is like, I have an idea of what this might be, but
it's a Chaos Space Marine foot, but it's like a possessed or something.
So?
Yeah, it's like a possessed or a twisted, like some kind of twisted Chaos Space Marine foot claw. Yeah, that's the bottom of like a Chaos Space Marine armor greave thing.
Nope. So this is a demon
Okay.
This is a demon possessed, like demon warp corrupted Dracoth.
Okay. It is using some of the same elements. I thought that too originally, and because like it is using some of the same ZCAD elements, I believe, as the Dracoth, right?
I've painted that foot before. Like,
well,
I know that foot.
You haven't, because it's not exactly the same. The Dracoth doesn't have the Under Armour sling. It also has an extra thumb toe right here that comes out right here. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, there are distinct differences between the Dracoth foot and this foot. The Dracoth foot has that weird side thumb toe. But the little toesy nubs and the pointy toenails, yes, are the same ZCAD element. That's, yes, accurate statement. So, like, I mean, it just, again, it looks like the bottom of a Space Marine Grieve. I'm going to go ahead and say it's some kind of weird possessed Space Marine Grieve. Or we're getting Chaos Pandas. New army, Chaos Pandas. Also possible.
You see, chaos can be cute too.
Yeah. This is the Chaos God of Cuteness. And they overwhelm you. And you just, it's like, it's all of the cat videos on the internet have empowered a new Chaos God, basically. Yeah.
Damn Webway.
So, and we're gonna get more of these every day, as is my understanding, right? So this is the other thing that makes me say it's the standard Black Legion armor, by the way, besides it having the underhook here. This, like, the Black Legion armor traditionally has this gold edging to it, right? Like it's got this sort of, the Black Legion Chaos Space Marine Army has the, I don't know what you call this like border, you know what I mean, this like ornate border thing where
like a trim.
Yeah, there you go. Like much like the Blood Warrior armor is kind of styled in the same way, right?
Yep.
And if you look here, it looks like they obviously sort of sepia filtered or red filtered or whatever this whole, image. But if you look here, you see this line running right here.
Okay.
See this tiny line. So the way that they paint Chaos Space Marines drives me bonkers, because they edge highlight without there being an edge. They do an interior edge highlight, right? Even though there's no reason that would exist like that. Like, I know my edge highlighting is already stretching reality, which is fine, whatever, it looks good. This is just like pure fantasy right here that this extra thing exists. So, yeah.
Cute.
There you go. So when I say butt plate, by the way, because like here's, I might have to move his guitar, but you see the butt plate stack there on the back of him? It's that, right? So there you go. Anyway, all right.
You have to be able to flex the butt.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna laugh if he has a face on his butt. If they release a Chaos Space Marine with a face on his butt, that's chaos. Truly is dark. We've gone to dark places.
So dark.
So there'll be new pictures every day. And I mean, I assume leading up to like the official, if in 26 days or 20, well, what is it now? Because now we're down to like 18 or 19 days left, right? Like that's because till Vigilus falls or whatever, because Abaddon shows up, right? Like the count at the end of the LVO video, which happened, 20 days, which happened 6 days ago, was 26 days, and then it ticked down. Okay, so we have 20 days left, which that doesn't quite work with a Saturday release or whatever they announce it, but whatever, something like that. You get the idea.
So you're saying they clearly did not learn their lesson from Malign Portents?
No, I think they did, because
countdowns.
what they're going to do, like, clearly they're going to release the whole Black Legion line, right? They're going to show you the whole thing, whatever that amounts to. In addition to, you'll see like Shadow Spear or whatever that new box is, and whatever else they're doing, right? Because if Shadow Spear is all new sculpts, there's a lot of stuff happening with that. So that's what it'll be. You know, Hakon, whatever the guy, Mr. World Claimer. He's Mr. World Claimer if you're nasty. He showed up a little while ago, and now he's waiting on the big boy to show up. And then we'll see the new Abaddon sculpt and all that. And they'll announce that in advance of the date, right? So hence the Demon Engine. Building the tent, building the hype train, as it were, you see, Tom. All right, what else we got?
I mean, do we have any news?
You have some Warcry related news. You want to talk this through, this rumor?
Yeah, so I want to be very clear and make sure we have a healthy dose of salt for this rumor.
Sure.
But so this popped up on TGA. It came from like 4chan, so deal with it. I mean, so we've had other leaks come through that. The story is it was a ridiculous number of paragraphs long, and basically it was a guy who knows a guy who knows, or a guy who knows some guys who play tested in Bristol, maybe. I don't have all the facts, whatever. You can go look it up. And came
the point
with a
is,
report.
it's the most reliable of sources.
It's the most reliable, yeah.
From other guys.
Just the utter, but I will say, like, it smacks when reading of this. Like, apparently the group was like super tight-lipped until the video dropped, and they're like, okay, we can talk about it now, and just began like openly talking about it, which just smacks of like normal gamer, like non-understanding of NDA. because what they said was that, like, this was a friend of somebody on the development team, or something like that, and so that's how this playtest group came to be. And so they didn't come through normal circles, and where like they probably signed an NDA, but they probably didn't like concern themselves with it. Like people who aren't necessarily normal playtesters. So that aspect of the story adds up. But the data that we found, or that we received, is that essentially this is Kill Team, AOS Kill Team. It's 4 to 20 models is kind of the format.
Which is exactly Kill Team.
Which is Kill Team. But it's going to have the differences is it has the commander rules baked into it. Like from the outset, it has the commander rules baked in. And your entire warband is built around a hero. So it's hero based. Mm-hmm. It is taking place at the all points. And so the idea is that Archeon still controls the majority of the all points, or the gates to the all points. Order has a couple of them, like Giron and Akshi and something else, Shimon maybe. And then Gur, the Realm of Beasts, is basically controlled by destruction, or like the last we knew that like Gordrak didn't close it, I think is what the story was.
Sure.
But basically that's open, and then apparently Nagash's wrestled hold control of Shyish.
Sure.
And so the idea is that like all of the forces of the various Grand Alliances are basically able to go in and like skirmish around the all points. And this is an excuse to basically be able to have boards from different realms. And if the one rumor that I heard, so the interesting thing is that I've gotten a second set of rumors from somebody else that has GW contacts that has been fairly reliable. And it sounded a lot like these other rumors that we've gotten from like this Bristol crowd. And the other piece of data is that like each player is going to bring a board a la Shadespire, and you're going to like put these boards together as part of the skirmish. Like the terrain building is going to potentially be a step in this type of combat.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Which was interesting.
That would also open it up to do
which
like
was
2 and 4 player games, right? Because you could have multiple boards attached and start building out bigger boards as more players are added.
Right, yeah. So like so that was an interesting element that it wasn't part of this initial rumor, but was related to it, about like having like, and like you can have Akshi, and you can have the different, feels like the different areas are basically like metaphysical things that are touching a la Planescape. Like this is the edge between, I don't know, whatever. So other important things, one deviation, or actually this is a lot like Kill Team and the beginning of Shadespire, is that we won't have wizards initially. Like Magic won't initially be part of the like core rules. It's likely to be the first round of expansions, like a big expansion, like Commanders was for Kill Team. That doesn't surprise me if that is indeed the case. And that may be more kind of along the line of this like Warcry, small warband skirmishing type thing. Cav models, they said, won't be there outside of like Boingrot Bounders and some of the small Cav, like the micro Cav.
Is that our term now? Is that a thing? Micro Cav? Yeah.
Micro Cav. And what are the other data points?
They said.
Yeah, no fine cast. It's basically all plastics.
Which expressly excludes Beastclaw, I might add, since we're on the topic, because our only hero under 340 points is a fine cast model.
Yep.
And most of our guys are Cav.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so Beastclaw just doesn't get to come to this party.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a shame too because
Much
you'd
as I would enjoy playing one Frost Lord against like 20 guys, like that would be very nice.
that would be dope. But no, like it's funny too because you actually have a pretty reasonable, like we'll get into Beastclaw a little later, obviously, but like if Finecast was on the table, you'd say like, all right, well, because there's new stats for this, right? Like it's not using the exact same stats. So like, okay, we could actually take the Ice Sprout, not to spoiler alert, but not so we could actually take the Ice Sprout Hunter and make him not a horrible pile of garbage, right? And like he could bring Yetis and some Frost Sabers, and that would actually be like a kind of cool sounding warband. Like that sounds pretty cool. Like as a hunting pack going out there, that's pretty dope. But nope, all fine cast, like top to bottom. That is a fine cast.
Maybe the rumor is true, and we can take this as a second tier of rumor. Hey, look, plastic Yetis, plastic
maybe
Hunter, right?
There you go.
Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah,
so
probably not.
All factions with faction divisions are going to be present, from what we've heard, of like the kind of things you'd expect. One exception to this, interestingly, was that apparently, like the Stormcast heroes and the Vanguard heroes can lead any of the faction. Like, and I'll get to the Vanguard hero in a minute, but they can lead any faction. So, like, you have these unifying elements.
You mean within their alliance, right?
Within their grand alliance, yeah. So, like, you could have the Stormcast hero leading a dispossessed warband or whatever, which helps fix some of those like hero problems, at least for two of the grand alliances.
Too bad other people who are less important to the story.
That's exactly right. Yes, exactly. But the other interesting element of this rumor that we caught wind of was that Exiles. So there's going to be two like new factions present here amongst Order, which are Exiles and Highborn, which approximately map to the Dark Elves and High Elves, apparently. And when this rumor dropped, I went and looked at the website and looked at all the kits. And actually, like, there's probably some meat to this rumor, because if you look at the remaining kits that aren't like the Witch Elves, the current kits amount to like 18 units of High Elves, 17 units of Dark Elves, and 11 units of units of Wanderers.
Sure.
And right now, because all the elves are like lumped into a single mega faction. Or mega tab, basically, on the website. So, like, it's within the realm of like a lot of these mega factions, like Skaven and stuff like that. The possibility, if this is true, that combined with the Skaven stuff means that we're probably going to say goodbye to all of the like Island of Blood Swift Hawks. So your Reavers, your Spire Guard, and the High Warden. It's sad, but it's true.
Things that are not commercially available, basically.
Right, things that are not commercially available. And so it was just an interesting like. Okay, well, that may be happening, because if this rumor is true, that would imply that's what's happening to AOS, is we have those elf factions being condensed. The other interesting thing is that the Shadespire warbands are supposed to have unique profiles and rules, a la like the Kill Team rule sets for like the Warhammer quest.
Yep.
Like Rogue Trader people and stuff like that. And so like they will have their own rule set, like all the Shadespire folks, which will be neat. It'll be
in other words,
you can
bring your Shadespire warband into here as a warband, right?
Yeah. So one of the weak points of this rumor, I think that weakens it, is that like that really hurts the current world that we're in for Shadespire, because the current release of Shadespire is magic based.
Sure.
And so like that doesn't seem to jive. I mean, it's not impossible. You still have your entire first season of
who weren't magic based people
who are no magic.
Right.
So like the entire first season of Shadespire. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how legit that is. The other piece was that the starter box, interesting, will be entirely composed of new miniatures, which I thought was interesting. It'll be Dark Oath, Slaves to Darkness, led by a Vanguard foot hero, which is pretty flippin' sweet.
Sweet.
A Stormcast Eternal with a lightly armored gladiator-esque hero leading the Stormcast. And some people pointed out that the person that's like leaping through the air in one of the images with like a weird like semi Stormcast like crescent like halo could potentially be that lightly armored hero.
I want to return back to that original piece of art with like naked Sigmar barbarian god jumping through the air, swinging his golden hammer at that Dracothian god beast or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking for more of that. Let's get some Stormcast. Let's get some Stormcast out of that armor. Let's get them greased up and let's get them wrestling. That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
With the leather daddies. And then
we've got a great release on our hands. It's just a bunch
by the way, as
shirtless
an aside,
meat slabs going at it. Go ahead.
The entire conversation of leather daddies, like, you know, that's their official name now. Like, people on forums everywhere are just talking about this Dark Oath release as the leather daddy release.
Good.
So Vince, it's stuck. Like, you've had your influence.
Well, look, if I'm known for one thing in my life, I'm happy to go down. You can put this on my tombstone. I'm fine with that.
And then apparently this release of the box is going to be followed by a huge range of box sets like Kill Team. And so they're going like the full Kill Team treatment. The one example they gave was like a Dispossessed box with a Warden King.
Mm-hmm.
And then 10 like the Ironbreaker kit, which was 5 Ironbreakers and 5 Iron Drakes.
Yeah, sure, because the Kill Team boxes have been printing money. And as I've said before, if you've got a money printing machine, you generally want to turn it on. Like, that's the way to go.
You want to keep hitting that button. And so and people have asked, well, what are they going to do for AOS terrain? Because like so far we haven't like what are they going to do? Because all those boxes come with the terrain, like scattered terrain. And it's interesting. Like I began to dig through the terrain stuff, and you could easily, like, the Citadel Woods fits in there pretty easily. I began to look at like the price range of stuff.
Sure.
You could get like a sprue from the Garden of Moor. Like,
the Sigmarite, the Sigmarite Mausoleum.
The Sigmarite Mausoleum, which is the Azerite Ruins. You could do, this is without any, like, doing any new terrain. Potentially even the like one of the big pieces, like one of the big old pieces that they did. Because I think that was a single sprue.
Yeah, I mean, look, realistically, they could also have new terrain. And let me talk about this game board thing, because I want to get in on this, because somebody had mentioned they thought they were kind of saddened to hear it was like a game board based thing. I think what they found is that the sort of Necromunda model for a game like this is the way they want to go. That is to say, they want the game to have a board and a play space when you open the box, but that's not the only way to play it. So, like, if you look at Necromunda, it has like a board in it and little, bulkheads you can use and stuff like that, right? But that's not how most people play Necromunda. They play Necromunda with like giant terrain because it works on other terrain. They just know that, like, if they're intending to sell this game to somebody who's new, because it is a gateway game, right? This is like, hey, you're not playing AOS, come play AOS Kill Team type of thing, right? Your Warcry, right? You 10 figs and you can start playing. Those people may not have full boards worth of terrain. So giving them just like a board they can literally unpack and play out of the box with like simple little things that happen on it gives them a chance to play. But then again, that can explode up into whatever, like ruins wise. I think of this like the old Mordheim box where, like, when you opened it, you got your little cardboard buildings that were crap. Right. But like,
hey, I still have those and they're amazing.
As do I. And no, they're not. But they're fine. They're fine. But no, they're not. But they're fine. But like, obviously that isn't where most of us played Mordheim, right? We didn't just use the 4 buildings that came in the box. That was just like, here, let me help you get started and define your play space for you and get you used to this. That would be my impression of it, just based on everything they've done recently. Joe, what do you think about Warcry and all this so far? Like, if this rumor's true, what do you think of it?
It's something I've been waiting for a long time, ever since Kill Team came out. I'm just like, man, eventually they're going to do this in AOS, and it too will print money. It's just going to be so good. That's why I was very sad to see the White Dwarf updated the rules on Skirmish. And so I'm like, oh, yeah, man, maybe AOS Kill Team isn't happening, and then this Warcry thing came out. So I think it is. Yeah, and so I'm super excited about it if it's true. If this really is what it is, it's the perfect gateway. It's the perfect. You're not going to collect a whole second army, but you could play with 10 Stormcast or whatever, or like something you're kind of thinking about trying out. I love the focus on terrain because I'm a big, advocate for that.
Right.
It would mean that for the most part, new players who got into it this way and old players who bought it, like, actual terrain is just going to percolate throughout the community in greater numbers than it currently is. And I think more people playing with terrain is just better. It's just a better thing for the game. So I'm excited about it. I'm especially excited about it, I think, probably because I tried Kill Team out at the Gen Con that it was released, and I found it to be 40k rules, only just straight better.
Right.
I'm like, oh, this is a lot better than 40k's rules in my opinion. And I'm not super into 40k, so don't yell at me. I don't know too much about it. But, Warcry could be, it could be AOS with a few things touched up, and just focused on smaller games. Faster games, that's huge. So you can play what? Probably, I'm just guessing, 2 or 3 Warcry games in the time it takes to play a 2K, tabletop experience. A lot of people don't have 2 hours to drive somewhere and play. Like, faster games, even if they're smaller scale and well done, is a big deal for busy people. So I like that aspect as well. You can still be doing AOS stuff that involves a game. It's just smaller scale and takes, shorter amount of time. So yeah, almost only good things to say. I'm sure the tacit omission of any way you could play BCR is simply an oversight or a mistake of the transcribing of the, whatever the rumor is, a little telephone game from the guy. But yeah, so we'll see.
I'm positive it's just they were just lost in the shuffle, and undoubtedly, if anything, it's only a herald of the great plastic BCR release.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I agree. Hold on one second. I just want to say this. Nothing made me have more terrain for my table than when we started playing Wartime. Right? Like, when we started playing Wartime, I was like, oh, I got to go get up and make a bunch of terrain. Like, this is years and years ago now. But, like, all of the initial stuff that I made and put on the table was for Wartime, right? Just, like, super tall buildings and graveyards and just interesting stuff I wanted people to run through in Wartime. And then that just became the terrain that was on my my normal table, right? Like going forward. Yeah, sure. It's fine now. It's again, my terrain is about as good as what was in the old Mordheim box set. So there you go.
So not true. Like the windows are all weirdly. The windows are all like weirdly shaped and cut. Like none of them are like uniform. It's the worst.
Sure, yeah, that's the real deal breaker. Like, okay, all right.
You're breaking my immersion, Vince. Sure. So here's the deal. Like, I am in. Like, I am so in. Like, you can't see this, but like my Kill Team shelves have been emptied and moved into my. Like, I'm not joking. And moved into my cell room. Like all of the 40k terrain, all of the everything has been moved into the staging area to sell on eBay. Like all of it's going because as soon as we get confirmation that this is truly what it is, all of it goes. I'm in on fantasy. I already have a bunch of that. I have a bunch of armies. I don't need both fantasy and 40k Kill Team. I do get rid of the Kill Team, in with Warcry. Like if that's what it is, I'm all in. And I'm so in fact, I decided to go one step farther, and I want to talk about this in my my segment this week.
Sure, your hobby
for like not my hobby, well, more my pick of the week.
That's fine.
But like, I'm so in for Skirmish.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I've run 3 long-term Mordheim campaigns in my time playing this game where I had warbands go to over 400 rating, right? So if you know Mordheim, that's like, it's pretty deep. You gotta go a long way to get to like a 400 rating, right? And and they were all awesome. Like, I love those warbands. I love those games. We plumbed deep for all the different scenarios we could do. By the end, there, it was just it was a great time. And like, yes, it eventually ended, but that's just because there always comes some point where a campaign must end. There's nothing else to do. So there you go. All right, cool. What else is? I think that's all, right? Do we have any other news? I mean, obviously we did the LVO show. You can go back and watch the LVO reveal show if you want to see us talk about that stuff. But hey, here's a question I'll ask. Joe, what did you think of everything else that was at LVO that got revealed? Since you were there, you were in the room.
I was in the line outside the room and unable to get into the room because the line was too long.
Were you able to do like this, kind of like poke over, like, let's go?
No, I talked to people that were leaving the room, and so I knew 1 second before it got put on Twitter. So there's my privilege of knowing stuff. No, it's fine. The blackjack.
You should have a press pass.
They're pretty magnetic, so sometimes you overstay. But I mean, a lot of people were a little disappointed as I was looking through. They wanted a IDK, right? And then here's the whole thing. Or they wanted a Slanesh, like here's the whole thing. But instead it was just a bunch of, to me, I really liked it because it was a lot of here is our intent. And GW could do more of that, you know, at least as a heads up. So for me it was a whole lot of little heads ups, which I don't mind either. I mean, there's a place for the big reveals as well. I imagine they'll be happening in about a week. But you know, I wasn't too sad about it. Warcry was really cool, and it definitely threw a bone to people with ancient armies and stuff from First Ed, where they're like, hey, with some measured language, by the way, so that it doesn't necessarily mean all of them if they don't want it to be, but like, you know, Flesh Eater Courts is just the beginning for people who had old books.
Right.
And we're going to drag you into second edition, whether it's with here's some endless spells and you're done, or, you know, here's a book with updated all this stuff and spell lores and things. But also getting around to finally giving like Skaven a book, you know, besides Pestilence. And so, yeah, it was very uplifting for me. You know, Seraphon, you know, Fire Slayers, all these people, yeah, they got Allegiance abilities in the GHB, and how good those Allegiance abilities are run the entire gamut between completely useless and you do GA, or like completely OP, like, you know, Seraphon, we'll say.
Right.
Just talking about the Allegiance abilities. But it's a good thing that they are kind of bringing everybody up into the second ed. So
yeah, I think they saw it was pretty successful as a 40K model, right? To sort of like run through the codexes at a relatively decent clip.
And see the printing money comment from the prior segment.
Yeah, right. And my hope would be that they've recognized the same thing has value here, right? Like, by the way, I don't mind GHB still carrying some factions. Like, I would. That's, to me, like,
it was a fine band-aid and a good place to put it.
Sure. And here's what I'll say: even if they really aggressively do books, it's probably not a thing that can touch everybody, right? Like, not everybody.
It's a great place to beta rules too, to see what works and what doesn't for potential books.
Yeah, I agree. So like it could just be a good way to still have like really, really minor factions have interesting or different allegiance abilities to put in stuff to effectively like run it out before the official book is there. I think it's still valuable to have both. So just, you know, if we see a year go by where it's you know, hitting hard, like the double stack of the FEC and the Skaven books, if we look back at the end of 2019 and there's, you know, 10 more army books out, let's say something insane like that. Like that's a crazy number, probably not unreasonable, right? If there's like 10 total additional army books, like you're like, whoa, okay, well that changed it, but 10 is still not everybody, right? 10's a hell of a lot better, but 10 is still shy of all by a decent number too. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, Cinderfall brings up a decent point where it could be GHB is now you're on deck in baseball.
I told Vince that, and he said no.
Are like a holding pen for people that are just about to get something, which is an interesting idea, but I mean, it kind of invalidates itself by necessity then. Every time you print it in the book, you're like, oh, these will be good for 6 months or something.
Sure.
So I'm not sure exactly about that. Plus, I mean, Gutbusters haven't been there for a long time and still aren't. And I mean, word on the street is they're next in line. You know, so who knows? Who knows what their plans are? I know there was a lot of pushback against needing 3 books to page between all of them for your different rules, and GA stuff is now in the core book instead of the GHB, so maybe it's a shift. Maybe it's a slow shift that way. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, it's always going to be a game of books. Like, I don't know what to tell you, because guess what? Is it going to be like this is the only 3? Like, you know, everybody says, like, I wish we only didn't have 3 books.
Yeah, and malign portents, I suppose, as well. I mean,
yeah, like,
but really, it's on your phone. You just bring your phone, all the books are there, and you're fine.
Yeah. Like, you think they're never going to make another supplement you want?
Right.
Like, you're going to have a lot more than 3 books, folks.
It's current year. You're just going to have all the stuff on your tablet or phone. So the number of books is kind of whatever.
Yeah, and also, like, if you're going to a tournament, it's just a good idea to just grab all those pages and put them into a single doc or something,
and
right?
Check your FAQs. These things exist.
Yes.
A lot of players still don't realize that, and might even do an entire show just called FAQs exist. Please notice them.
Well, and some of it, like part of the, you hope that those things slowly get folded. Like a lot of times when they change hard rules, they do update the war scrolls now, so that's good. Like war scroll,
that's kind of what errata is for. It's like we're just about to change this the next time we print it, but we might as well update it on the app now, which is kind of what they've been doing. So
yeah, it's good. It's the real problem that happens is when you get like a sort of clarification, like the nature of how multiplication and addition works. Like when we were talking about like the the Captain Smash Spider Rider Goblin, right? When you're like, because that would be an easy thing to switch around if you didn't read the sort of designer's commentary where it talks about how to do that, right, or whatever. So yeah, and that's something that's like not, you don't want to put that into a core rules. You really don't. Like this is one of the challenges of game design, right? Like if you try to put every corner case into the core rules, then the core rules become too big to be useful, right? You want the core rules to cover like 99% of use cases, which they can do easily and still be basically 12 or 15 pages. And then, but the 1%, even 1% of cases where there's a question, that's still a, where the rubber meets the road, that's a fair, decent number of questions that still get asked, right? Yeah, there you go. But if you fill up your book, if you can spend 15 pages on 99%, another 200 on 1%, like that's the real math of trying to sketch that all out. So ever the present of layout and ever the present challenge of layout and game design. Anywho,
there was one more thing with the FEC spoilers or reveals or whatever. I noticed one of their rules had the language, do this to X units where X is equal to. Like that's what they wrote in the rules. And good job. Let's keep doing stuff like that. It's much nicer rules, and maybe only because I come from MTG where that's just generally the way. But I think that's a big improvement from like a paragraph of stuff trying to determine stuff. So hats off. Credit
you see the Skaven update on the language of like weapon equipping? So instead of like one out of every 3 can have this, it's 33% of models, which was a real interesting change.
Well, those model units, you want exact, you want to know.
Well, and actually, the reason why, I wonder if this is why it came up, is the conversation for returning Get Spite Gloom, like the stabas. Like, how many nets do you get when you go down to 10 stabas? Like, do you lose all of your nets, or like how does that work? Because it normally was 3 out of 20. And so the question is like how do I know how many nets I have when the unit comes back? Or like when I bring 30 back, how many nets do I have?
Sure.
And so like, and it got clarified in the FAQ, but I suspect that this, like the percentage rule moving forward, is probably going to be their solution to that.
And it's always good when the rules get out ahead of questions like that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thankwill's rules, yes, as was mentioned in the comments, Thankwill's rules use that same thing, right? Where he does X, where X is the number of sort of warp fire throwers that you've equipped him with, right?
Yeah, I was thankful for that.
Love it. Punerific episode, yes. Also, Thankwill's an absolute beast, and I was happy to see that. Okay, so there we go. That's for next week. All right.
Next week. Haven't you scheduled 2 Skaven shows back to back?
Yeah. Which point?
So the next 2 weeks.
That doesn't invalidate my statement. My statement isn't false.
Have you scheduled 13 weeks in a row, Skaven?
No, we don't have that much time. That'd be a good way to go. Well, no, Tom, we'll just do 13 hours between the 2 shows, obviously.
Oh, God. My son has Doomwheel on his iPad, and he loves playing it, like all my kids do. And he's like, wait, Dad, like Skaven are an army, right? Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
so,
and
like,
you can tell him, hey, look, I'll get the Carry an Empire box for you, and you get a Doomwheel inside it.
And he's like, so, like, do they have Doomwheels? And I was like, yeah. And I pulled it up, and he was like, oh, man. Are you going to get that army? I'm going to be like, I just sold that army last year. No Skaven. None. And then the narrator, and then he bought Skaven.
Sure. Got to take care of the kids. All right. Any other new stuff we want to touch on, Tom?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Cool. Well, I think our next, like, there's a Toy Fair show where we'll probably see something interesting because they usually, like, I don't remember when the Toy Fair thing is happening. It's happening here sometime.
It's in
over
New
the next
York.
weeks. Yeah.
Next month, next week.
I think it's next week. And like we generally, there's no like reveal show, but they just generally
Right.
have like interesting box product.
Right.
Usually it's a chance to see something. So like it could be a thing where you see a Warcry box or something like that.
Oh,
Could
yeah.
be a box.
That's
they
a good
put
call.
out there.
Because normally it's board game related, obviously.
Right.
And so something that's like a self-contained box like that, like we saw one of the self-contained, like the smaller starters for AOS, like the Thunder or whatever starter, Thunder and Blood.
Yeah, Thunder
showed up like that a couple years ago.
Yep. So like, you know, it's just it's not like you don't get a deep dive on the product, but it can be an interesting thing to see like some images or some minis or the box of a game or something like that. So our next,
you know what? I'll bet we'll have a reveal for Warcry there. Now that I think about it, like this is the perfect market for it.
Could be like they could put it on a shelf. They could have a sample of the printed box in there. It's hard to say. Like it depends on when they actually plan on dropping Warcry. You know.
Interesting. Well, they announced Shadespire, and then we got at this show we got at least some of the art and we got the box cover and stuff like that for Shadespire.
Sure.
At that same market. No, we didn't. It was at Acon. It was after.
Well,
that.
the original was Acon,
yeah,
but it didn't come out for a while. Anyway, okay, cool. Well, then, gentlemen, let's turn to some pick of the week. So, what would you like to share with everybody, Joe? What would you like to direct everybody to this week?
Well, I would like to be selfish, and I'm going to direct them to a tournament that I'm helping run called Animehem. That is ANIMEYHEM 2019, which is in the greater Milwaukee area. If you're around southern Wisconsin, it's taking place at an anime convention called Anime Milwaukee, and I've done some tournaments for them, you know, and other stuff in years past. And we're like, you know what, let's toss an AOS tournament in here and see who bites. I know it's a niche of a niche, right? AOS players who are also into anime, but you know, they could also be into drinking beer and having a good time. So yeah, that's happening this weekend. And direct them to the Facebook page. If you're around there, you can head out. It'll be a lot of fun. We're doing a 3-rounder. It's the first tournament. I'm doing it with Mr. Mephisto. He's running it. And I'm like a judge, and I'm helping, you know, run the thing, getting trophies and whatnot. And it's our first event we've ever tried to do. It's at an anime convention that you got to buy a badge for, but the tournament itself is free. So, you know, understandably, there's probably not going to be too many people, but we can handle a decent amount, I think, with our terrain and monsters and stuff. Oh yeah, monsters. It's anime, right? So what would it be without Godzilla killing Tokyo, right? So we're in Gur and we're using monsters. We're using the monster rule. If you don't got a monster, don't worry about it. And in fact, I'm kind of not, because the more I learn about AOS players, the more I'm realizing that yes, most AOS players do in fact just have a monster, an extra monster lying around, or an entire other 2 armies. But if that's not you, we got you covered. We got a whole bunch of beasts. I'm doing a show tomorrow. We're going to do the War Scroll, so all the War Scrolls for them are the same, so it's, you know, remotely balanced. And the whole thing is a bit of a narrative. Round 1, you fight Godzilla against each other, and then there's just kind of you're going after some nuclear power, and then last time it's a nuclear wasteland, and it should be pretty fun.
Nice. You know, I know there's a bunch of folks, or at least a representative of the bunch of folks from the Madison area in the chat right now. So hey, Madison people, you're not that far away. That's an hour and a half drive. In fact, one of the people who's in the chat right now drove me from Madison to Milwaukee at some point in the past, like because he's one of the greatest human beings alive. When I was sort of stranded and needed to get between those 2 cities, and there's not a great way to do that, shockingly. So, you know, I'm just saying, hey guys, what are you doing? Rally up this weekend. Come on now. All right, cool. I'll throw a link down there in the description to that. Check it out. Tom, what do you got?
I'm going to promote a channel on YouTube. The channel's name is Tomb of 3D Printed Horrors. It is curated by Fat Dragon Games. Fat Dragon Games previously was a terrain printing company where like you bought and assembled cardboard terrain, like cardstock terrain. And I had backed some of their Kickstarters and really enjoyed their product back when I was like 4 or 5 years ago when I was doing more Mordheim and stuff like that for like buildings. And then when 3D printing moved into the mainstream, they jumped ship from the cardboard terrain to the 3D printed terrain. And they've been doing that and releasing 3D printed terrain for a while. And this channel, its purpose is to, take you from being a complete beginner at 3D printing and make you an expert at printing your own miniatures and terrain at home on a 3D printer. And so it's like a channel on all things related to 3D printing for our hobby. And the video that I want to promote is it's a simple video. Where'd it go? I'm so bad at this. It's like 3D printing for 3D printing for tabletop at RPGs and war games. And so I'm going to recommend it. I say this to say, with Warcry coming, the purging has begun in my house. I talked about the kill team stuff moving to the cell room. I began the liquidation this week of all my Dwarven Forge stuff. I've sold about half of it, and so it looks like already like 2 days later. And so that means that I am pretty much locked in for diving full force into the 3D printing world. And so I'm going to get a 3D printer, and so I've been exploring that aspect of the hobby, looking forward to building. Obviously, I care less about miniatures. I'm more interested in like terrain building and board building and stuff like that with a 3D printer. Shout out to Anthony Pocastro, who he's provided me some of my 3D printing stuff, and he's been like my soundboard, kind of my guru for 3D printing, kind of talking me through options and printers and all things 3D printing related. So I'm going to finally jump in, folks. It's happening.
Great. More terrain. Tom sort of has had a mini epiphany that he likes painting terrain. I think it's your happy place. Yeah.
It is. Like it is. There's a zen. Like there's a zen to it. And my kids have been begging to like have me teach them the airbrush. And
boy, that seems like a recipe for disaster. Get out the G22. That's all I have to say.
And so what I'm going to do is for models for that, I'm going to use 3D printed terrain to teach them airbrush on. And so I felt like that would be a good, like we could do like basic shading and under shading and all that stuff and dry brushing and a lot of that with 3D printed terrain. And the other thing that my other recent experience is because I've been building this board and I use 4 like fairly large 3D printed trees. And unless you're like really looking, you wouldn't be able to tell that they're 3D printed. And like that was the breakthrough for me when I realized that you could do 3D printed terrain that wasn't obviously 3D printed. Like the resolution lines can be dealt with in a variety of techniques and ways. And once I did that, I went, okay, I'm in.
Yeah, I think that I agree with AOS Coach. Like you need to get on it because this is child labor for painting terrain, like the most boring of all tasks. And you've got extra workers you can put to task. Yeah, that sounds.
I do. And like, yeah, my brain's already going.
You're going to be ready to run a tournament in a couple of years. Just
that's what I was like. My head is already that direction where like I've already begun pricing mats, like people's favorite mats. Like I did that today on Twitter because I'm like, okay, so the idea is at this point, like I just go the route of like Steve Herner and I just start building tables. Mm-hmm. Like I get an idea, I lay out, I buy a mat, and then I build terrain to that mat, and then I move on to the next table and just go table by table and see how many tables I can accumulate. And then suddenly I have my own stuff for a tournament.
Nice.
Oh, it's happening. The Warhammer Weekly Open.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Run by Tom only. Having nothing to do with Vince at all. Enjoy that. So my pick of the week is actually a real simple one. It's from last Friday, but I really liked it. I'm sure everybody probably like I'm promoting something that's already wildly successful, but I don't care because some people might have missed it. So Uncle Adam from Tabletop Minions he had a video last Friday about basically like a very simple trick to working with green stuff, to making like flat, making like large flat rolls of green stuff. One of the challenges you often can have when you have green stuff is if you need to get something like big and long and flat, to actually getting it even without it sticking to whatever you're trying to use to roll it out flat with. Right. And just like, or it gets your space all messy, right? Because then you get like green stuff stuck to your like painting mat or something like that or whatever. And like his trick in the video is so simple, I can't believe I didn't think of it. It's so unbelievably easy, but like he shows it happen, and it's just like using something I had sitting right beside me. I won't spoil it. You can watch the video. But it's great. Short video, super easy, very easy trick, and super useful for making like, you know, the green stuff flat for cloaks. Or he was using it to make like flayed one skin, right, to hang off Necrons. But, you know, anything like that, right? There's lots of excuses where you'd want like large flat pieces of green stuff. Maybe if you were going to then lay them out on bases to do then like green stuff rollers, right, or something like that. So all sorts of different reasons why you might want to do this. And yeah, it's the one weird trick you won't believe for not sticking your green stuff and rolling it flat.
GW hates him. Learn this life hack.
So there you go. I'll link the video down. It was cool. I again can't believe I didn't think of it. Okay. All right. Right on. So let's talk about some hobby time. So hey, well, you're back. You're back home now. Are you the type of person who immediately when you return from a tournament, you're filled with a hobby vigor, or are you hobby exhausted? Like what's your space when you come back?
Yes. When I get back from an event, I am reinflated with the desire to paint and put stuff together that should have been put together a while ago, and come up with new lists and things like that. But I haven't had the chance, because no sooner did I land from my double delayed flight. But now it's time to start working on Anime Milwaukee, which is like this weekend. And I got shows to put out, because I had been too busy to put shows out for like a month. You got to do something to be a content creator, right? You got to create content. So, you know, I had to finish a show, which I just put out before this one. And now I'm getting trophies in the mail. I'm collecting terrain from people. I'm trying to finish stuff like that. Mephisto's painting terrain right now. And so, yeah, I want to do all sorts of stuff for me, but, you know, leading up to this weekend, it's got to be stuff for, you know, for the event and for other people. So I'm holding that energy, and I hope it just stays. And then after Amkey, then I'll tap into it if it's still there. Nice.
Any idea of what you want to work on? Like what's what's up on the plate there, or what are you pivoting toward?
I have a bunch of IDK that our team randomly won in events and like from sportsmanship and at Gen Con and stuff. And so we've just accidentally acquired, it just happened to be like every time we won something, it was like, and here's your box of stuff. And it's like an Eidolon, and it's like some Thralls. And we're like, well, IDK seem really cool. So I guess, you know, what's my army, you know, until Beastclaw are good. Like I'll just keep bringing Beastclaw until I guess IDK, you know, Tides of Death are pretty much like what Everwinter should be like, right? So it's
yeah, sure.
Thing. And I just love I like an army that is so visually creative that they probably went a little too far, right? And that's where I like to be. I would rather them go a little too far with how creative this stuff is than you know, be tempered about it. And besides the fact that I think the eels look derpy, everything else is really cool. And so what happens in AOS when you think a model is really derpy but it's really good? Well, you build your own. And so now I'm kit bashing Zinch screechers or screamers, you know, those manta ray looking things.
Oh yeah.
I'm like getting the extra 6 eyes off of them, and I'm making like surfing like riders on top of them, and those are going to be so there's a whole lot to do there. And so far it's been pretty fun. I got my little test model I've been working on I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
But you know, on a base, and I'm putting some dudes on top of it, some sunken Roman stuff, well, Stormcast stuff. And it'll be fun when I can work on it next week after I do my next show and after I do Anime Milwaukee. So
I dig the heck out of that.
See,
Got
the
an
secret
assembly
here,
line in front of me.
Joe, the secret, by the way, is just to like mooch off other people's channels so you can be a content creator without actually doing anything.
Well, see, during the month I didn't make a show. I was on Doom's show for that 3-hour chaos thing.
Yep.
I'm doing this, so you can shuffle.
It feels good, doesn't it? Where you don't like have to do anything. Like everybody else does all the post work.
Yeah, you can move the cups around with balls under them, but at a certain point you have to do something. And I got this dude asking me for dispossessed lists forever now. He's starting to come into other people's shows I'm on in the chat and then just be like, when's dispossessed, and not even talk about the show at all. And so I better do that before I get stabbed in real life or something. So.
Indeed. He's going to be outside your window pretty soon. Like, yeah, he's right behind that curtain behind you.
You
right
don't want
now.
to give dispossessed players a grudge. That's what
right.
It's true.
Once you're in the book, there's no coming out of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So there it is.
Not until it's settled.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love the surfer, or like those screamers or whatever. 3 of my like Zinchi and Varangard I converted by taking screamers and building them up and putting riders on them, right? So I can just put them on the right size base because I thought that was cool. A sort of monstrous mount type thing. Yeah, I love those screamers. They're great models. One of my Zinch chariots is just being pulled by like what's the
Gore Beast?
Thank you. Yes, the name would not click in my mind. So the Gore Beast chariot instead of the dumb Gore Beast. It's screamers pulling them, right? So there you go. Yes. So I'm down with those. Right on, Tommy. What do you got? What are you working on?
Leaves.
Leaves, huh?
Leaves.
No, like so. The funny thing is that like, I ran out of Nuln in Karenberg Crimson like midweek, and so I had to stop leaf work last week because I couldn't go on to my next step. And so I got a bunch of like my main board all dry brushed and painted. So that's basically all done. And I have a bunch of harpies that are yet to be revealed that aren't the other harpies that we've seen for my board.
You really want to lay into that A sound, by the way. You slurred that. You swallowed that A a little bit. Really laying into the A sound. Otherwise, it sounds like you're saying a much different thing at the beginning of that sentence.
So harpies, I've been working on, and my new modified Cauldron of Blood. So I basically took everything up to base coat status because all of the washes that I needed to use, I didn't have on hand. And so I couldn't move into any of my washing steps for my board, for any of my models or any stuff like that. So now like I'm in catch up where I've done washing. So now I'm moving. I'm going to finish the trees probably, and then go back to the cauldron and maybe the harpy. Like I'm just jumping around. Like I have resolved at this point. I'm sorry to disappoint folks. I will not be able to take Gloom Spite to Acon. Like it's just not in the cards. I can't get my other stuff painted. Like this is taking a lot more time. Painting thousands of leaves is taking a little bit more time than I anticipated.
That's fine. There's plenty of tournaments, man. You'll have your goblins for a while. Doesn't need to be the next one.
Indeed. So
it's not worth rushing an army ever. If you've already got an army that you can play that's valid, don't rush another army. Like you have multiple armies.
And arguably it's the more competitive one anyways. Sure. So like it's probably the thing I should be playing, but yeah, we'll see. So I'm probably not going to play. I won't. I'll only take 2 armies to.
Yeah, the one person who is going to be deeply affected by this announcement is in the chat, being deeply affected, but that's okay.
Yes, I know. I knew. Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll get him to a tournament with the Gits. Don't worry.
Paul being one of them, obviously. Herner being another one.
Look, I'll make sure. Don't worry, Paul. I'll keep him on the straight and narrow. So there you go.
Yes, they will get done. It's just I can't. I want to. I don't want to rush this army, nor do I want to rush the next one.
Totally fair. Totally fair. That is the right answer, always. I see people rush armies when they've already got like 5 armies. They're perfectly valid to be played. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Take your time. Like, enjoy it. Like, build your army to a nice status. And then people are always like, well, I could have spent more time on it. It's not to the level I like. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, that was your own choice because you rushed for one, completely unnecessary event that you could have taken anything else to. Like, if it's your first army, okay, cool, I understand. Like, then you got nothing else to fall back on. But if it's your, 7th army, probably take your time. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right. I'm taking my sweet time on this Ideneth Deepkin. So I mean, if Adepticon comes around and I'm not close to done, it's going to be Beastclaw again, and that's fine.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
When
that's
you took
somebody who's,
order,
that's
like
somebody
you
who's
took
playing
Mixed last year, right?
Beastclaw.
Yeah. So what? You lose? I mean, come on. You get first place at Adepticon, you get a trophy, you get a box for an army you don't play. It's not it's not $20,000, right? So
Hey,
you're
you
there to
do
have
get a
fun.
trophy. You get a big hammer.
Yeah, I mean it's good for your shelf. So
Totally
it's
true.
not nothing.
Yes. It's taking the time is good and rewarding. And then in the end, you now have a really nice army and you have that forever, basically. So that's cool because you own that now. That's yours. So yay. For myself, for my hobby time, I have this big guy here. He's ready to get put in his little box to go with me this weekend because this is the weekend I'm teaching in Phoenixville. We got a nice full class. That's going to be a lot of fun. This is obviously the skeleton of him. All his armor is packed up separately. I, of course, decided to go for the variant with this one that has a giant chainsaw sword and a giant punchy fist. Because in my mind, if you're going to build a giant robot that could have devastating long-range firepower on it, nah, just build a giant robot that wants to go punch people. Why have guns when you can just punch and chop? So this is
you can just open the cockpit and like robot bring them closer so I can hit them with my sword.
So this is Punchy Choppy. I'm excited about him. So he'll be painted this weekend for the class. If you're interested in future classes, the next one is in Dallas in April. The link's down in the description. I'm also doing a class we finally got Warhammer Fest confirmed as May 11th and 12th. So if you're in the UK, we're finalizing all the details, but it'll be the week before Warhammer Fest, whatever weekend that is, the Saturday. So whatever the 7 days back from that, like the 4th and 5th or something, whatever.
And you'll be where?
In the UK. It'll be in London probably. Yeah, so that'll be in May. Then after that, it'll be Olympia, Washington, and Chicago in September. So, and then as well at Gen Con and Nova. So there you go. That's teaching schedule as I know it right now. There'll probably be more, but so there you go. All the links are down in the description. It gets updated if you follow that. But that's just for this weekend. My actual fun project that I'm working on is this guy, Mr. Noise Marine. I had to change him some. I didn't like his guitar being in front of him, so because it blocks off the whole model. So he's actually going to be like, he's gripping up on the guitar. And he's like this, right? So he's just kind of holding it out here like that while he shoots somebody. Well, he stops rocking for a moment to shoot somebody, and then he goes back to the rock. You know,
I don't know if I like it, Vince.
And I just didn't like the guitar in front of him. I didn't like the pose. So, and I also went ahead and I didn't have any converted heralds on mount. So I tried to make a little special girl for a herald on Seeker, since you can put your heralds on a Seeker. So that's her.
You know what I need to fight that with? A bunch of harpies from Daughters and all their wings.
Sure, yeah. So just like look how far that whip goes off the side of this. Like that is just gonna be tangled in everything on the table. Hence
my harpy comment.
Yeah, I finished up yesterday. I haven't posted them yet, but I finished up my other 5 Hellstriders and my Herald on Seeker Chariot, the small chariot. So they're done, and I'll throw some pictures up before I leave this weekend. Okay. I understand the guitar is also a gun, but like this is close range. He comes with a pistol. The model comes with a pistol. It's totally legit. I went and looked at the data sheet to make sure it was legit, and they have pistols for when they get close. When someone gets in your face.
I love how you catch crap when you like models without the things they actually come with in 40K.
This guy,
it's the funniest thing in my world.
He legit has a pistol. I went and looked at the data card to make sure I wasn't, because I wanted it more open, and I wanted something in his offhand. So I found the actual Chaos pistol out of my bits. I even made sure I got a real Chaos bolter pistol. I looked him up and matched it to appropriate, and all that kind of stuff. Like,
this is what happens when Vince gets critique.
It's fine. We'll do it right. We'll do it live. All right. So there we go. A lot of stuff on the desk, and I'm not going to have a lot of time. I'm in the next couple of weeks. I'll be there will be, after like next week will probably be a normal show, and then there will be many shows that will be, actually no, I think we're okay for the next couple weeks, but I have a lot of travel coming up. That's what I'm trying to say, folks. And it may or may not be like shows.
We have a week
on top. We may be in the hotel some. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we have a week where like I'm in Cozumel with no internet, and Vince is like in Sweden or something.
I'm in the Netherlands. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a great show.
I won't be there.
We'll figure it out. All right. So with all that, let's turn to some Beastclaw Raiders. Maybe one of the let's call it like we see it here. Maybe one of the lowest performing factions within AOS 2 right now. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
It is currently 7th. No, it's currently 8th right now.
You mean
out of the 8th from the bottom out of the 42 factions.
There you go.
Do you know what's number 7 from the bottom?
What's that?
Karajan Overlords.
Hey, well,
Beastclaw.
Go ahead.
Good. No, Beastclaw have a better win ratio. No, is it? No, sorry. KO are right. No, Beastclaw is number 6 because KO is 7. KO is a 38.6% win ratio over the 38% of Beastclaw.
Oh, there you go. So okay, so KO just slightly edged him out.
With KO. I feel like we're brothers in arms because we're both armies that were good for a very brief amount of time.
Like a small window.
Yeah, and then they were not. And they very much were not for a long time.
Yes.
There's some differences there. I think you're capable of building a KO force that's decent. It just people kind of don't want to, and their reasons are legitimate, and we can get into it later. But
this is not a KO show.
Yeah, they both need help. So anytime somebody gets lifted up, I'm pleased. So.
No, exactly. But we should start with the history. So Joe, you're very familiar, intimately familiar with the rise and fall of the empire of the Beastclaw Raiders. You want to bring everybody up to speed with a brief history of the icy ones here? Yeah,
so I'm not terribly familiar with the rise exactly. I teleported in at the peak. We'll put the first
Convenient.
I believe it was the week I finished painting my first AOS model ever, which was a Mornfang unit. And I was just about done with one Thundertusk. Was the week, so I played one game with real Stone Skeleton.
Oh yeah,
and I think 5 brutes during a walk killed him from full life, even with the half damage. And so I became afraid of brutes forever, and spent the rest of the game running away from Gordrak. It was fun. And then GHB came out, and it changed things. So in the tournament scene at large at that time, you had Stone Ruck and Cow Ruck being a tier 1 army. There were a few tier 1 armies. This was one of them. It featured a Cunnin Ruck in Bone Splitters, a whole bunch of just massive regiments, even those didn't exist yet, of orcs with bows. They shot 1 billion times, and they took up a lot of table space. And behind them, you either had 2 Stonehorns with artifacts, because Cunnin Ruck's battalion, or 2 or 3 Thundertusks shooting stuff that mattered. And this is mixed destruction. It was tier 1. It was real good. At this time, Beastclaw itself as a faction was middle of the road, but still like competitive in a way. And then GHB came down, and GW saw a destruction army that was tier 1 and doing very well, and determined that this was absolutely unacceptable. And so destruction move, allegiance abilities got changed. Instead of just D6 move for all your stuff, it was roll a die, and only on a 6 does this work. For your general, it's on a 4. They saw Battle Brew and artifacts affecting mount attacks, which is the only good attacks that our heroes have, which are on the mounts. The heroes on top just kind of punch stuff 3 times with no rend. And 1 damage. So it's really about the mounts. Artifacts no longer affect the mounts, so damage went way down. Massive regiments were introduced. Battle plans cared about purely numbers. If you had 20 or more, you just auto-captured and stuff, so we're even more hurt on objectives than before. Stone Skeleton, instead of having damage period, have characteristics as they were targeted, rounded up, which meant that you have this incongruence between what Stone Skeleton is in a description and on the lore, which is their skeleton's made out of granite, and it's a hyper fast regenerating granite at that. It's Wolverinium, except stone. And it regenerates so quickly that overnight when they're sleeping, Stonehorn's bones fuse together at the joints and become somewhat statuesque and would be stuck there and die unless the ogres wake up and smash them with their huge fists to like break their joints and allowing them to actually move. And you know, your normal weapons and tooth.
This doesn't seem like a side note. This seems like a creature that would not have survived evolution. I'm just saying, like that feels like that would have gotten weeded out a while ago.
That they met up.
They've had these caretakers for millennia. They've had these ogre caretakers.
It
is a creation myth, right? And so perhaps they, you know, the beast and man were created at the same time to synergize with each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, with creation myths, you can tie it together however you so please, and that's how I choose to. But so anyway, pitchforks, weapons, blades, magic, whatever, it gets tossed aside easily. But then after the fix, as it happens, the best way to kill Stonehorns is with a bunch of idiots with 1 damage weapons, just of throwing a bucket of dice at them, and they're all dead. So there's a little, I think, I don't know. There's something wrong there now. And it's an annoying and slow mechanic to get through, which is every time you're targeted by something, you have to have it rounding up. And, what do you do about D3s? And, you know, there's an answer to that question, but it's kind of wasting time and it's annoying. They already have 6-up, you know, after saves and 5-up after saves. So they're, you know, they could have done something like that, or the fast healing like Guos. But anyway, they chose this. So those were, you know, so we got hit from all sides and in all ways, and it was pain.
I can identify with that.
Yeah, and like I said about KO, they got KO'd. We'll put it that way.
I think
no, they got Beastclawed. KO got Beastclawed.
That's true, because Beastclaw happened first, although KO has a nice ring to it. But so for the next year or two, before LLV was doing his stats, I was kind of looking into them, but I'm not as industrious or as smart as LLV mathematics wise. So he's definitely picked up since then. For like the calendar year after that, I think I was looking, there was a period of like 3 or 4 months where during the big tournaments, the highest ranking Beastclaw was bottom 10. And people just stopped. There were tournaments where like there were 0 and all leading up until 2nd edition, where we got realm artifacts, and you could give ethereal amulet or cloak or, you know, whatever to a Frostlord, and then now like you can kind of play Beastclaw currently. There are a few different lists you can play if you get lucky with matchups, and that's really the thing. Like the thing that matters the most is if you get lucky with matchups, you can go 3 and 2, or 2 and 3, like pretty much flip a coin, and it's one of those two. If you don't get lucky with matchups and you play against the real, you know, the big boys, like any real army piloted by a human being at the table, it's no good. It's no good.
Just somebody who's still currently alive and breathing and has models across the table from
someone who remembers that they can teleport with Wildwoods or something. You know, like as long as you remember that much, you're good.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
where they're not in a coma, for example. That would be And
you know, we've seen this. Like I think, you know, you said 38%. That's better than before. Like after second ed, 38% is a huge increase from where it was before, and that's because we got realm artifacts for the most part. So, you know, still not in a very good place, but it's a big step up.
I'm sorry, I just had to laugh at the comment of Simon Wingate in the comment said BCR would probably lose to Legions of Nagash piloted by a crow. I mean,
crows are real smart.
Crows are very clever, yeah.
They're smarter than dogs. But you're right.
I can see it like with his beak pushing like skeletons forward.
Yeah.
Moving those 40 skeletons is a real effort for him. That's really the problem. That's a smart crow who uses movement trays though. So
right. Yeah. Smart crows use movement trays. It's a good advertisement. And everything in your army hits on 4s? Cool. Well, how about 5s now? And how about, you know, when these guys come back? So yeah, it's an uphill battle. And we have a bad matchup against probably the majority of matchups, I would say, which is probably a definition for not being very good. But, you know, we can hang in Duality of Death sometimes. So, you know, and Braga's Beast Hammer can get real lucky against an opponent who blunders, and we can do tons of damage. So anyway, that's the history. That's where we were. This is where we are. And let's move forward. It's wish list time, even though it's, I mean, we're halfway through February, but it's still Christmas in my book, especially after Las Vegas.
I mean, the blizzard is chasing us.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, that's what happened at Wapaka. In Wisconsin, it was -50 after wind chill. It's 5-0, and there were 5 Beastclaw in attendance. So we brought the Everwinter in real life. Apologies.
Nice. All right, before we get into the actual fix, I want to lay the groundwork of the units. Okay, like what's in there right now. All right, because again, I think there's a lot of people who aren't familiar with this army, right?
Yeah.
So they have a bunch of big models, right?
Yeah, we have a bunch of big models, and most of what people know about Beastclaw is the one thing that does 6 mortal wounds.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about like
the terrible.
Sure. Let's just, I kind of want to broadly break this down, right? Because the challenges will become evident when we kind of talk about the 3 core components of the army, right? Which to me are like your leaderships on Thundertusk or Stonehorn, your sort of other dudes, we'll call it, right? Which is like your Yetis or your Mournfang or your Frost Sabers, or your Icebrow Hunter. We can make fun of him for a moment. That'll be fun. And then your non-hero versions of your, of your big mammoth riders that are, battle line gift sort of situations. So kind of take us through just like, like not blow by blow their stats, but like the 4 big guys. There's 4 different versions of them, right?
Yeah, there's 4 different hero behemoths, and they're split based on what they ride. So there's a Frostlord on Stonehorn and a Frostlord on Thundertusk. And then there's a Huskguard on Stonehorn and a Huskguard on Thundertusk. And Frostlords are the guys in charge of the Alpha Stun. And the Huskguards are kind of mystical. Every word is priestly, but they don't have the priest keyword. They scream priest. They have prayers in all but name. But, maybe this is still early, this book. But so the Frostlord versions have the Mighty Frost Spear. Does 3 damage. It's round 1. That's pretty good. And then the Stonehorn, like itself, is the same no matter what you're doing. So the Frostlord version of Stonehorn, same stats as the Huskguard, same stats as the Beast Riders, which are the battle line version. So you have this magical kit called the Behemoth Kit in BCR that gives you 6 units, which make up most of your army, aside from Mournfang, which is pretty good. Maybe it's just trying to stretch a little too thin, but you got a lot of options in there, so they had to give them more scrolls. Frostlord version of all the Stonehorns, their claim to fame is they move 12 and they can run and charge. When they charge into something, they do d6 mortal wounds. That's good. And it's automatic. It's not like roll for it. It's like d6 mortal wounds. They have a whole bunch. Well, they have a lot of different weapon profiles. Some of them matter more than others, but they get 6 attacks hitting on 4s that do 3 damage, rend 2. So inaccurate, but big damage. And then they punch and kick for some reason, which is kind of silly, and it never does anything. No rend, 1 damage. Okay. And then the crushing hooves are random and then random. So it's a d6 hits, and then it's a d3 damage. So who knows? And the Huskguard versions only have the mount attacks plus punching and kicking. The Frostlord version gets the Frost Spear, which is actually a good weapon.
Gotcha.
And they have a little bird that is annoying to people.
Do we want to talk about the Snowball, the dreaded?
Yeah, we'll talk
Snowball.
about Thundertusks. And so the Thundertusk version is 8-inch move. It's got piss poor attack profile for a 300 whatever point. It'll do like 2 or 3 damage on average to 4-up saves. It's just not there. And the dude on top punches and kicks. Cool. They have a thing called Frost Wreathed Ice, which is a missile weapon, but you're not rolling to hit. Within 18 inches, you roll a die, and on a 2-up, just 6 mortal wounds. 18 inches. Boom, headshot. Oh, you have a, blood secretor. He's real important. Off the table. I rolled a 2. And I call it Frost Wreathed Salt because people don't like that. People really don't like that when you're running 3 or 4 of them surrounded by 100 bone splitters. So this is where that came from. But
and this was back before as well. Like this was back before there was a lot of mortal wound protection. Like it wasn't like saturating the meta. And so like that was just instant death. Like those guys, there was no real way to stop that snowball coming in.
Yeah, very importantly, the game has certainly evolved since then. There's a whole bunch of, perhaps even too much, mortal wound protection everywhere. Of course, I say that. I'm playing the Thunder Tusks. But, I mean, you shoot a Necromancer with Huskard on Thunder Tusk, he's going to take, 2.5 damage on average.
Right.
Maybe.
It's not a good return for 340, 360 or whatever. So, yeah, the game has changed there. But there's a catch, because they thought they were making really powerful War Scrolls, and so they built in catches to them as a balancing point. And the catch for Thunder Tusks is, it's straight 6 mortal wounds, but as it gets damaged, that chart drops like a stone. On the 3rd damage, it's a D6, and on the 5th damage, it's a D3. And it becomes 1 after 9. So it goes down real quick. Depending on how much shooting there is in the meta or long-range spellcasting, Thunder Tusks are either like middling okay or like completely not worth taking. It just depends.
Right.
Stonehorn also have a balancing factor. Go ahead.
They also have a heal, which I think is a big part of that snowball, is the ability to... the Huskard has a heal, which is the ability to basically restore the snowball to full power, which is the scary part.
Yeah. And so people would play a whole bunch of Huskards so that the heals were more likely, and you could put them all on one guy. And it kind of it created a counterplay, which is good.
Right.
Counterplay is good for units with downsides, and it's probably healthy for the game as it stands. The Stonehorn also have a downside because they're so strong, which is, although they can run and charge, they must choose to charge always. You can't say no. And so they'll charge off of objectives in Duality of Death. Like it can be a big problem. I've often had to spend command points re-rolling charges because it doesn't say re-roll failed charge, to try to fail it and stay on the point. Creates some interesting gameplay, I think. But so that's the 10,000 foot view. And Thunder Tusks themselves are at -1 to hit, but only in melee range. So you have this big cannon that shoots people that used to be real good, and now it's depending. And you have Stonehorn that used to be really durable and do tons of damage because of artifacts affecting command trait mount attacks. And now they're randomly good damage and durable with ethereal, we'll say.
Right on.
And so that's all the big beasts. You also have beast riders, which are the 2 guys on them. Those are battle line. And battle line behemoth sounds good, but they don't fly. Yeah, it's 12 wounds for 300 whatever points. Like, they're awful at capturing. It's generally speaking like not really what you want. It sounds cool, but as it turns out in the game, like, you'd rather have 360 points worth of battle line guys and then be capturing and have something else to do. So
yeah, they really got hard by the move towards sort of body counting for objectives being the thing, right?
And well, that can move right into the first idea for a change, which will be a little out of place. But so wouldn't it be nice if they had a battle trait where you would calculate number of remaining wounds of BCR keywords as number of models for purposes of capturing objectives? And we would call it large and in charge, which I think is the best advertisement for that.
It's appropriate.
I think custodians have something like that.
Yeah, there are. Yes, both in the custodes have a sort of, it's not wounds, but they have a version like this where basically, like, if they take they can take the point away from anything else that outnumbers them that doesn't have a certain role effectively, right?
We don't really have those roles in AOS, so I think just number of remaining wounds is a fine halfway point.
But yeah, the key being that, like, literally there can be like 20 of some kind of random troop sitting on an objective in 40k, and like 3 custodes on jet bikes or whatever can roll in and be like, "Nah, this is ours now. This is
right.
We own this now. Get out of here."
And that's fair because it's probably a similar amount of points, or maybe even more for the custodes.
Yeah, they have very few models. Yeah,
in that respect, that makes sense. Being elite in AOS is pretty much a straight downside for the most part. And not even just because of capturing, but mostly because of capturing. It tends to be elite units kind of melt to mortal wounds.
Right.
They don't have as many attacks, and even a few really good attacks are generally speaking worse in most cases than a million bad attacks, but the cursory receptions.
Yeah, I think unless you're elite and super defensive, right? To where you can like, if you're elite and hyper defensive to where you can like pin a very large unit, right? Like you can get close and sort of touch the corner of a large unit and be basically immune to sort of like, there's no way given the models they have, they could actually hurt you back, right? You're that defensive. That's where sort of elite can become good, right? But it's not the case on things that are on like 4-up and 5-up saves.
I wonder if like if that would be a good universal change for scenarios in that would be to allow capping based on wounds, like just generally.
No, I don't think it would be. No, I think it'd be bad.
Think so?
No, but I think
got a lot of pushback on it. So,
but for a single army, like for somebody like Beastclaw, where the idea of the army is you're playing behemoths, right? I mean, let's face it, that's the idea here. Like, yeah, there's Yetis in Mournfang. Okay, fine. But even then, like Mournfang are in packs of 2.
right.
It's not like you just vastly increased your numbers. We're seeing, you're not a horde army still. Yetis, you're bringing 3 when you buy a unit. So it's like, this is small numbers here, right? There's no 20ers. There's no clan rat in this.
Well, you could ally in, like you could, what can you ally in for them?
Ogres. You can ally in Gutbusters. So you could have 12 Ogre Bulls for 400, which is a decent, it's actually a pretty good like wounds to points ratio. It's 48 wound, block of beef. That's pretty cool. You could ally in Gutbuster Grots, which is like 60 for 270. Although they lose a lot of their luster when they're not forever battle shock immune from a tyrant or something like that. So I haven't found them to be actually that good. Especially for an army that wants to always just run up. You're not trying to protect stuff. You're trying to run up and start grinding, you know. And so the large amount of really awful grots didn't pan out really. But I think an army shouldn't have to ally stuff to fix like its main problems necessarily.
You mean like ally and wizards? I agree.
Yeah, like KO and Fire Slayers needing, maybe not needing, but really wanting to ally in some wizards and stuff, especially now that wizards capture in the one battle plan.
Or Beastclaw, right?
Yeah, or Beastclaw, same thing.
I mean,
like
Beastclaw don't have wizards either.
Shaman, yeah.
Right.
And plus, you know, you chose Beastclaw or KO because you want to play Beastclaw and KO. You don't want to play 400 points worth of a way better thing because you don't have the option to do that, you know. And so I'll play Mixed Destruction if I want to play
Mixed Destruction. Yeah.
Mixed Destruction. So
absolutely, I get it. Can we take a moment to dunk on the Icebrow Hunter?
Oh, the gingerbread man. Sure, let's get to him.
Okay.
I call him that if anyone is wondering because of his model. He's in full Wayne Reynolds pose. If anyone's into D&D art, which is the arms out to the side,
right,
you know, feet remarkably hidden, fine cast. He's 140.7 wound hero with a 5-up save. He has 4 melee attacks that don't have rend. They hit on 4s. He's got a single shot 12-inch crossbow that hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, no rend. Does a D3
so delightful.
And a second single shot throwing spear that's 9 inches, hits on 4, rend 1, damage D3. No command ability, not a wizard, not a priest, no buffs, no nothing.
He's a hunter.
He is a master of ambush, though.
That's true.
So similar to Soul Scryers and Rune Smiters and Warp Grinder weapon teams and, you know, deep striking guys. Except the market difference is that he's 40 points more expensive than those guys and can't bring anyone along with him. He just lands. He was Metal Gear Solid waiting there with a sheet over his back with snow on it, and he pops out. Bah! I'm gonna miss all my attacks against you. Watch out, you know.
Surprise! I can't do anything, but I'm here.
Notably, he pops up, and like he is at a range where, like, theoretically, he could use his 2 ranged attacks, right?
No, just his 1, because it's 9-inch on the 1, so he can only shoot the crossbow 1 time.
Oh, there you go. Fair enough. But like, it should also be noted that when he does the ambush, he loses actually other rules because his spear gets better when he can run and shoot.
Right. Oh. He can run and throw it.
Yeah. But
he can't run and shoot the crossbow. He can just run and throw the. It's so bad.
He doesn't even get full run and shoot. You're right. No. I'm sorry.
And when he was in the air, if he's your general, which you need for Frost Saber battle line, you have Everwinter's Master, which lets you reroll the Everwinter die. Well, you can only reroll that if you're on the table, and so he starts in ambush, and you can't do that. He's got problems, but don't worry. You can pay 150 more points for a battalion, so that your worst unit can come along with him, which is cats. So eat that, Soul Scryer.
Well, now hold on. Them cats are 40-point battle line. Come on now, just flood the board.
Yeah,
There you go.
With
Cats
with 5 bravery, 6 up save cats. Yeah, that's good.
40 points. What's the profile on them for, like, how many models do you get for the 40 points?
2, and they're 2 wounds each, 6 up save, 5 bravery, 9-inch move, 3 attacks a model, 4s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1.
2 wounds each.
Yeah, so comparing them to, say, dire wolves, isn't good. Doesn't look good.
No, but you can get a lot.
You can, and they can be MSU, so you can do the staggered, waste your opponent's time thing with them. And one of the maybe better ways to play Beastclaw is playing with a ton of 40-point MSU Frost Sabers and just being really annoying and wasting your opponent's time.
Going to the store and buying like a bunch of Nolzur's Marvelous miniatures, like giant cat models or Bones giant cat models or whatever. Yeah, at like $2 and $3 a piece. Yeah. Yeah,
the Monopose Finecast Frost Sabers aren't really up to snuff. I find Fenrisian Wolves from 40k to be much nicer.
Yeah,
for them.
Yeah, be good.
And
so, yeah, that's the gingerbread man.
He's a winner all around. I cannot believe that you didn't mention his super sweet icy breath. Yeah, this is where he makes his money back right here.
Yeah, icy breath. You give up attacking with your other 2 missile weapons, right? Because otherwise it'd be overpowered.
Of course.
6-inch range. Roll a die on a 4-up. D3 mortal wounds.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Dunk on him. That's what he's doing right there.
I wasn't trying to lowball him by not mentioning that. We just didn't get to it yet. So. What can we do with this guy? He could be a priest, and we could have prayers.
Sure.
Cool. There you go. And, fix up his war scroll a little bit. I know that he has the Hunter's Crossbow single attack and the Great Throwing Spear single attack awkwardness, because that's what comes on the sprue. And so that's, he's got stuff in the kit, so you got to give it rules. I understand. But he's a little too terrible even for that.
Well, what's hurting him is he's Finecast.
Yeah.
So like, there's no future for him. I think the key is I don't think like gilding the piece of crap is not going to be the way to go. Like if you're going to make something a priest, I think making the Huskarls the priest is the way to go. Because they're already praying by like doing the healing thing. They're already like, this is the problem with like Rune Smiters and Rune Masters in Fireslayers is that they have the priest keyword, but they don't actually do prayers. Like they do other effects that are basically mimicking their priestly thing. And all that just needs to be fixed. And I think the Huskarls are in this space. Like they are the priests of the ogres. They just need to fix that and give them real prayers. Give them, that would be one of the first steps.
All right. Well, hold on. We'll get into the how do we fix them later. Real quick, I just want to wrap this through. 2 more quick things I want to touch on. Yetis and Mournfang. And are Yetis actually the only good, like truly good unit in the army that isn't even that good?
Yes.
Okay.
Short answer, yes. Icefall Yetis, you get 3 of them for 120 points, 4 wounds each. So 10 wounds a point. That's pretty much, your baseline standard. Yes, they only have a 6-up save, but they're at -1 to hit in melee, which is better than a 5-up save in almost all cases. Ranged can tear them up. They have a 9-inch move, 6 bravery, 3 attacks a model, 4s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1. So you're talking 9 attacks, 4s and 3s, rend 1, damage 2 for a unit of 120. They have a really cool rule, which I think turns them from being like not worth taking into the best thing in BCR, which is bounding leaps. Icefall Yetis can be chosen to pile in and attack in the combat phases as if they were 6 inches when they're within 6 of the enemy, and they can move 6 when piling in. This is a trick. Not only can they pile in 6, but they can be activated from 6, which allows you to just stop outside of 4 and kind of always strike first in a way, depending on how you're setting stuff up.
Right.
It means you can always retreat on your turn every time. because then you could just pile right back in and kind of pick your battles in a way. This means they're really maneuverable as the battle rounds kind of progress, because you can run up to a unit, and so you always run with them, right? And so you run up to a unit. Maybe it works out that you can pile in last after the unit's attacked. You can even set that up, and they pile in kind of wrapping around. Now it's your turn, you retreat, and then pile in around the final back of the thing, and then now it's dead. You can kind of keep maneuvering them as the combats are happening and the turns are happening to kind of get places, which is neat. And the ingrained -1 to hit shuts off a lot of things that proc. Although less so now, they seem to be moving towards a natural 6s, which I think is a good thing for the game itself. Moving forward, because I think -1 to hit is like overperforming in a way, because it's shutting off stuff like Blight Kings or whatever. What'd you say?
I said, but suck it, Blight Kings.
No, yeah, indeed. Like, no, the other thing that I would add to that is, as a, like, not that we want to hose your other destruction brethren, but you got to find a way to beat best general for destruction. Beastclaw, those Yetis actually, and anything that piles in 6 inches as an aside, like tactic, shuts off the new dreaded fanatics. Like, because the fanatics all say that they strike at the beginning of the combat phase before any units are selected. And so as long as there's one other unit to select, the Yetis can be outside of combat. The combat start, the fanatics strike anything within range, which will be nothing. And then you pile in the Yetis and wipe out all the fanatics. And even if you don't kill all of them, the fanatics don't get to strike them, because you can't select because it specifically says you can't select the fanatics to pile in, because they strike at the beginning of the combat phase.
Yeah, it gets around great companies as well, because that's all triggered on charge, not pile in.
Right.
Yep.
It's also pretty good against IDK during the high tide, because they fight at the beginning of combat as well. And so if you pile in way later, then depending on what's happening, either they've already attacked or now they can attack normally, but you get to strike first. So, and then Mournfang are really bad.
That probably sums it up pretty well.
Yeah, they don't do any damage statistically. I worked it out for fun. And while this isn't on the charge, because when you charge, you reroll 1s, and they have a 50-50 at a mortal wound. But when a Mournfang pack of 2 for 160 points is just attacking, they on average do 1-ish expected more damage than 10 Namarti Reavers who are only fighting in melee and not using their bows. So this is poor.
Not Namarti Thralls.
No, Namarti Reavers, the bow ones.
The bow
just
ones.
Punching.
Yes.
Getting bonk with the bow. It looks good, right? Because you see 3 damage on Gargan Hackers. Ooh, that's a lot of damage. But looks can be deceiving, because you only have 2 attacks a model, and half of them miss right off the gate because it's a 4-up. And they just don't have enough attacks per model for being as elite and big as they should be. And they're poor at capturing, because there's only 2 of them. They have 6 wounds each, a 4-up save, which is durable on a model per model basis, but not necessarily for 160, you're getting 12 wounds and like no damage. So they have Iron Fists, which have the old wording. So if you make a save roll of 6 or more, it kicks back a mortal wound, which means against Ren it does nothing. Which means against Ren doesn't do anything. And when they
6
charge,
or more is great when it's still hiding on a hero that you can give the appropriate magic items to. It's not so super great on random units that aren't carrying around magic items.
Details.
Especially when Mystic Shield doesn't work like it does any longer, or it used to any longer. And their banners are just bizarre. It's a huge paragraph, but you can re-roll dice rolls of 6 for taking battle shock tests. And whenever an enemy model flees, you roll a die, and on a 6, another enemy model flees. But I've found rolling a 5 on bravery is just as heinous as anything else when these 80-point models are running away. So they do have a single pistol shot from the leader. Which hits on 4s and 3s, rend 1, damage D3 at 12 inches. So that's kind of nice. And 9-inch move, 3d6 drop, the lowest to charge. It ends up being, they don't really have a job. I guess that's the thing. When you're looking at units, a lot of times you're like, what is your job? Or what could your job be in my list? And so, like, they're not an anvil because they have 12 wounds for 160 and no mortal wound protection or anything. So they're, they die pretty quick on a points basis. Anvils tend to, or should be, probably good at capturing and sitting on a point or something, and these guys aren't because there's almost none of them. They don't do good damage, so they're not a hammer. Like, what are they for? I'm not sure. They just don't have a job. And I think they should have a job because they come in to start collecting, which is 4 Mournfang and a Behemoth. And it would be nice if people stopped coming into Facebook Beastclaw like group and they're like, hey, what's a great Beastclaw list? I just bought to start collecting. And we're like, everything in there sucks. Sorry, buddy. Use the Behemoth. Yeah. So that's unfortunate for new players rolling into it. They're going to get trapped. And
you said they were 12 wounds?
12 wounds for 160.
Yeah. 60.
What if they were 120?
Well, hold on. Let's flip it. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's fix this army. Here we go. Now we begin. It's all right. Sails to the wind. How do we correct this listing ship?
So how do we fix this army? Stated goals. We'll keep the theme of the abilities, except make them good or at least interesting. Hopefully both. How should they play? How they're intended to play? But really, BCR units should be best played in a BCR army. This is one of the reasons I want to spend time on Allegiance abilities and less so about War Scrolls, is because that's the main thing obliging people to play an actual faction is their Allegiance abilities. Mm-hmm. And we've had a history of problems with that in Beastclaw, of people poaching. No poaching are whales. No poaching. You have a Frost Lord with Ethereal, and that's like the best thing you can do in Beastclaw. And so why bother with all that other crap and the Allegiance abilities that suck? Just play that and Mixed Destruction, and you're good.
Right. That's where KO is at. Like, I know, like, I don't want to keep making the parallel, but like that's exactly where KO is at. It's like, what? Just grab Arcanaut Company with a Chemist and throw them in mixed order, and you're good.
That's a power pair. Drop the rest of that stuff. Yeah. And so we want to move away from that, or at least make that a cost.
Yeah.
That you probably don't want to take. So, the first thing I would do besides just changing War Scrolls or points or everything, because that's a GHB thing, but I think the Allegiance abilities really could do for an overhaul. We came out right after, but were being developed at the same time as, or in my opinion, probably before Sylvaneth.
Yep.
When GW decided that Allegiance abilities should be good and even interesting. And so we were like the last one with Allegiance abilities that were like bad. So we have Beastclaw Stampede currently. When you charge, you reroll 1s to wound. So if all your guys hit on 4s, this equates to about 1 miss turning into a hit per something like 12 attacks before armor. Not exactly worth writing home about. I propose, you could go a few ways with this. I like, it could stay a damage bonus, in which case it should probably be like a big deal to get the charge, say. And so, reroll failed hits. Since your guys hit on 4, this is actually better than +1 to hit. And I know there's probably too much re-rolling of everything in AOS currently. So I'm,
that's how you win.
That is how you win. But no, I'm sympathetic to that argument. However, we're ultra elite. It's not re-rolling hundreds and hundreds of attacks. We're re-rolling 4 Gargan Hacker swings per 2 Mournfang plus their 8.
Right.
Like, it's not. Right. I think it's fine for this.
I think re-rolling hits on the charge in an army that can often have like less than 10 models.
Right.
seems reasonable.
Right.
We're not into the like I'm swinging in with 60 goblins hitting on 5s with re-rolls where it's just like, oh god. My
where
brain
most
is gonna
of the
melt.
dice are being picked back up. Yeah.
Yeah, like we're a long way from that. So sure, I'm okay with that. I like that. All right, I'm down.
We could, for instance, I did a little research but I didn't play Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Could bring back Overrun, at least in spirit, in some way. So if somebody should have the option of trampling over a unit that breaks to their charge, maybe it's Beastclaw that has something like this. So, if a BCR unit that charged this turn wipes out a unit in the charge phase, or maybe the combat, or flees to battle shock, you can pile in again but not attack.
Yeah.
Or charge.
No. If they wipe out a unit when they're activated, like if they charge and wipe out a unit in the combat phase, they get to pile in and attack again. That's the right answer.
I just don't want to step on Ironjaw's toes, but I guess Ironjaws are getting a new book as well. So
sure.
Well, Ironjaws are triggering another unit. That same unit isn't continuing to overrun. That's the difference.
Sure. I'm not sure you'd want to just pile in because it's not necessarily going to be anything else to pile in into.
Well, you can.
That's not true.
Maybe it has to do with distance. If you're still within 3, you can pile in again. If you're outside 3, you can move half your speed. If you're outside 3 within 12, you can attempt to charge again. And then
sure. I would also just accept then because we are very much into like the sort of destruction move thing there, which might be fine. I would say you can either to me, it feels like you either choose to pile in again or you can charge and fight again. Like you have to just straight roll the charge roll again, right? Like if you're outside of 3, you can just straight roll a charge roll and fight again. Like, cool. Why not? Like, sure, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Like Flesh Eater, of course, are doing that on command points now.
Well, and by the way, one of the serious weaknesses to this army is being chaffed up by dweebs, right? Like the last thing this army wants is a bunch of like dumb tenors of Ungors running around skirmishing in front of their guys. Because you're gonna blow those up instantly if you touch them, of course, right? But that still stops. Like that's it. That's your round. I hope you enjoyed using your 400-point model to kill 60 points of Ungor that round or whatever, right? Because that's all you accomplished. And you didn't nothing in this list is flying, right? So like they have to ground pound it. So this is actually a good solution to let them.
They need to be able to punch nerds and then punch more nerds.
Right. Yeah. Is that a Homer Simpson reference? The nerd stomper?
It's just nerd punching. I don't know where it came from. Tom and I have long talked about just punching nerds. I'm not sure. I don't know where it originated from anymore. Like it's just become a thing.
But yeah, because a lot of destruction armies, nothing flies, or most things don't fly. You could put a thermal rider cloak on a guy, and Maw Crusher flies, but everybody else is kind of getting chaffed up. And IJ duff through chaff by activating extra stuff at least, and flying over with a Maw Crusher. And so
and by the way,
trample over him, charge again.
Yeah, and like destroying a unit straight out on the charge, unless they're chaff, is like that's a tall order. Like going into a 30-pack or a 40-pack of guys, it's not exactly the common outcome, right? Even in an army like this. So yeah. Okay, cool. So there you go. So they on the charge, if they're rerolling hits, and then in that combat, if they wipe the model out, they can either pile in again or charge and fight again. So in either case, they can fight again. I'm down with that.
In charge, like we talked about before.
Yep.
And then there's Everwinter, and so Everwinter and Beastclaw Stampede is currently like all there is. But I think mount traits are something that could pretty easily get tossed into BCR and make a whole lot of sense.
Absolutely, they're all about those dumb elephants.
Yeah, and in fact, at least Huskguards anyway. The Huskguard punches and kicks 3 times, 3s and 3s, no rend, 1 damage. Everything else is his mount. And the Thunder Tusk, you have the Blizzard Speaker up there who maybe heals on a 4-up. But really, it's the Thunder Tusk that's shooting everything. So really, the mounts are like the important thing about them. So I think mount traits fit right in. They could be boring like Stormcast, or they could be really good. Whatever. It could be, maybe they can move over enemy units as if they had flying when you're piling in or charging or something because they're trampling guys. Or maybe this is where we put improved stone skeleton so that people can't poach like the good shit. Or
just give them the rules. Give them the rules from the Doom Wheel, where they can move over models of X number of wounds or something like that.
Because you're trampling. Or maybe it's just normal stuff, like reroll 1s to save, or an extra attack here or there, or extra range on whatever. Maybe this mount is really smart and he listens to the ogre on top so he doesn't have to charge, or something. There would be 6 options just like always, so you can do that. But
I like the idea of you had said one that actually really clicked and I liked it a lot, like the sort of, but going to the mount traits, like I'm not sure I love backing out like the auto charge, just because not that I would rather just get rid of the auto charge thing, you know what I mean? Like it just feels like an unnecessary penalty, and I hate like when you have to back out the costs. Yeah, exactly. I'm generally like, it always feels kind of like a lose when you're wasting something on just backing out a negative that probably didn't need to be there in the first place.
Well, we don't have any command abilities in the army, so what else am I going to spend them on but run rolls on that? So
right. My thought was, what if we mentioned D&D, so let's bring in a D&D concept here as the mount trait. Okay, so like the requirement is you have stone skeleton or whatever, right? And So what if we have, let's say, let me pitch something at you and you tell me I'm insane. You ready?
Okay.
Damage reduction 1.
I like it. Nobody else would.
Sure.
It depends on how much we care about other people's joy.
Sure. Because what I mean here,
I love defensive builds. And like what you're saying right now is you're giving mixed destruction the ability to shove these things.
No. No mixed destruction.
Oh, mount trait. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
okay.
it's a mount trait. And by the way, this could only be like taken once on one mount, obviously, blah, blah, blah. You can't make all of them like this, but it would make one of it. What I'm effectively, for those who aren't keeping up with me and what I mean, like damage reduction 1 in D&D or damage reduction in D&D was classically this concept that you just reduce incoming damage by the amount listed, right?
Per iteration of the damage coming in.
Right.
So
for
5
each
attacks, -5, so on.
Right, exactly. So to a minimum of 0. Right. So the idea here would be you could pick one of these guys and literally make him immune to 1 damage attacks. Okay, like that's what I just proposed. That's insane. I understand that. Okay, but maybe it's not.
Maybe
that's what Castellant backed Star Drakes are right now.
I mean, sure. Like, there's plenty of models that can already effectively hit immune to a lot of damage, right? Like, I mean, without, like, if you don't have Rend, why even attack, right? There's plenty of things in the game that can hit, like, 2-up rerolling 1s to the point where, like, 1 in every 36 wounds has a chance to actually wound them. And also, by the way, some of these models heal. So you literally have to put, like, Rendless attacks. You would have to make 180 or 240 Rendless attacks to kill them.
To put a damage. Well, no.
Just
sometimes,
yeah.
So,
like,
or Marathi can only take 3, in a turn. That's big.
Right. Sure. I like the idea that you could have this one mammoth that just can't be brought down by 1 damage attacks. Okay, cool. Like, multi-damage stuff can still kill him. Mortal wounds can still kill him. Spells can still kill him. Maybe it's only in melee that this works. I don't know. Like, we could figure out other ways to limit it or something, right? But it seems like that could be a fun, super defensive thing, that your general's mount is this, like, that is really a stone skeleton. This guy is unbreakable by little weedy dum-dums. And if you want to kill it, you got to get something serious into it. And like
ancient bones or something like that.
And there's still not that, like, most armies have multi-damage attacks on something, or mortal wounds, or spells, or blah, 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 right? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, an army of, like, big stabbas from Bone Splitters are still going to run into this thing and just paste it across, like, just, or like 10 other things just in off the top of my head would just roll over this thing like it wasn't even there. Still.
Yeah. Or, I mean, they don't fly. So you just still put your 40 skeletons into it. Yeah, they're doing no damage, but the guy's just stuck there forever against 180 points.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's counterplay even if your army doesn't have any multiple damage with it.
Right. The other option would be, yes, as someone pointed out in the comments, you could have the old, like, sort of Ushabti rule, right, where it was like against 1 damage attacks, you get like a big bonus to your save. So you effectively go to like a 2+ against 1 damage, right, or something like that.
Yeah, data from the mothership. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say anything like that. I like having that be a mount trait seems cool, where you can take 1 and make him like super defensive in that way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna point out data for the mothership's thing where he's like, Stone Skeleton should just be a 4-up shrug anyway, because that ends up having damage in the end anyhow. And while I agree with him, I think my somewhere in my notes, my fix was like, Stone Skeleton has changed. It's become a 6-up shrug. And then there's maybe a mount trait, maybe a battle trait or something like that, where it's like Beastclaw faction Behemoths, or Beastclaw faction Stonehorns get +2 to this roll or something. So it becomes 4-up.
Yeah.
And so everybody gets the 6-up, you get the 4-up. Maybe everybody gets the 5-up, you get the 4-up, whatever. Something like that, where, we already have the shrug rule and it works in the same way as Stone Skeleton originally did anyhow. So let's just, cart that in.
Sure. And the feel no pain is fine. But like, at the same time, I like the idea of just building it into where it's not triggering additional rolls. And also it's not then giving mortal wound protection, right? Like I do like a big thing like that being like, okay, it's super tough against normal attacks, but you can still melt it with magic or fire, right? And like shrugs are shrugs. They like a feel no pain is a feel no pain. If I lace into you with magic, you're just as resistant to that as you are against, wiener attacks, right? Whereas, like,
Right.
if you make it that they're just on a 2-up save, then, that has a different statement about toughness. And
Right,
it
but
packs it all into one roll. Right?
But here's my concern, though, is that, like, if you do separate that, what happens, like, you open up the possibility that these guys come in with Ignax's scales and now have, like, a 2-up base save, 4-up against mortals.
Okay,
Like,
if you make it a 4-up, feel no pain, the same thing's gonna be true, and then they're gonna be 2-up, 4-up, 4-up, or sorry, 4-up, 4-up, 4-up. Like, you're only gonna make the situation worse. We're gonna talk about that next week. Believe
Right.
you me, next week we're gonna have a discussion about stacked saves and like a model. All of this is just a joke. Everything I've said is just a joke compared to a model we're gonna talk about next week in the Skaven army. So forget about, like, all these things I proposed. Who cares? All nothing compared to what we're going to see in the rats. So anyways, go ahead.
And that's a good point because, what's my ideal Beastclaw? Is it the best army in the whole game? No. Fair-weathered Beastclaw players, go. Like, everybody has that idea, but although I'm kind of joking about it, I don't care. I want more people to play Beastclaw, but just viable, just competitive.
Yeah, and fun and thematic. All this stuff feels really
everything
thematic.
Works on theme. You can play it as its own thing. It's fun. If you do really well, you can do really well.
Right.
I almost don't want to be the best army in the game because then the target's on your head for changes and people changing lists and stuff, But yeah, moving on. We got the Everwinter, which currently is an allegiance ability that works on pure randomness, and therefore it is not fun.
And it's not like randomness that's all good. Like, one could argue perhaps that Nurgle's wheel is somewhat random, right? Because your initial setting of it is random.
But you can control that.
But you can control it. They have spells. And
you know what's coming next.
Right, exactly right. And I would also argue there's a lot of really good effects on that wheel, like game changers. When you're making the entire enemy army reroll 6s to wound, that's, pretty decent as things go.
Yeah. And it kind of restricts player choice when you have something this important be random as well. Like what you said about the Nurgle thing. If you know what's coming next, you can start to do plans on that, and that's fun. Right. Having more control over your decisions is good. Currently what it does is you roll a die at the beginning of your hero phase, and one of basically 3 things happen. On a 1 or 2, you have reroll 1s to save army-wide, which we used to say was real bad because Mystic Shield gave +1. But now Mystic Shield is real bad as well, so okay, maybe that's all right. Freezing Tailwinds is 3 and 4. You can immediately move everybody 3 inches, although not if they're in combat. One of these 2 is something that you want turn 1, and after that, you probably never want the movement 1 unless you're like chasing an objective late game or something like that, because you tend to get stuck into combat or be dead. And then the 5 and 6, which are the highest rolls, are 2 different types of, on a 5 it's D3, on a 6 it's D6 as far as damage, but you roll a dice for each enemy unit you're currently in combat with at the top of your hero phase. And on a 6, they take some mortal wounds. And forget for a moment how spectacularly unlikely that is, to roll a 5 or 6 and then follow that up with a 6. And in 94% of the cases, nothing happens.
Right.
At all. But a lot of times, 100% of times, nothing happens because, all right, turn 1, Everwinter, it's a 6. All right, nothing happens. We're done with allegiance abilities. Okay, moving on. It's a feel bad and it sucks. So the Everwinter has a whole lot of potential to be really interesting. And maybe I'll start with if you keep it real similar to how it currently is, and then we'll move to like more creative things. But what I'm seeing is you have a defensive 1, a movement 1, and an offensive 1 in broad terms. And so the rerolling 1s to save thing, well, it's nice to sometimes build your own Star Drake with a Frost Lord with Ethereal, and now you're reeling 1s to save, so you only fail on 2s. Like, that's kind of cool. But in most other cases, it's not actually that great. I mean, for instance, Yetis have a 6-up save. So a bunch of people are attacking you with Rend 1. Doesn't actually matter that you reroll those 1s to save.
Right.
And Yetis tend to be what you play with a lot of.
What if it was something like like strong winds, like strong winter winds, range attacks have -2 to hit.
Yeah, that could be the case. Like the idea of Everwinter and this blizzard that slows everyone and obscures sight and stuff like that the Beastclaw have lived with, and so they kind of get around.
Right.
The Everwinter idea is a very debuff feeling one, and that could be a route to go.
Because then what it does is like it doesn't hurt their range at all because they're throwing snowballs fine on their 2-ups.
Right.
But for everybody else, like suddenly shooting into the wind is a problem.
Sure, I mean the Icebrow Hunter sucks even worse now, but that's fine. He was already a hot Chinatown garbage, so that's fine.
Change him.
Yeah,
He shoots
I get it.
snowballs from crossbows.
We will make it. We'll fix him. Don't worry. We're gonna get to him. But yes, no, I agree. You just have that this army ignore that in any of 10 ways. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like it could say, I mean, all the Nurgle stuff you ignore it if you're Nurgle keyword, so it's really easy to make that in. It's called Fortifying Hoarfrost is the first one. They already have wintry healing, prayers and stuff. So maybe it's each friendly BCR keyword heals D3 models because everybody's multi-wound. So maybe that's something that could happen.
You meant D3 wounds, not models, but I know what you meant.
Yeah, D3 wounds. Sorry.
Add an additional D3 Frost Lords on Thundertusk.
Yeah, yeah. We're not going crazy with it. We're just trying to balance them. Freezing Tailwinds is the movement one. Maybe BCR models on the table can retreat and charge this turn.
Oh yeah,
so they retreat out. They get Tailwinds. They charge back in. Now you get your charge bonuses. And since you're choosing one of these 3 things, you can be like, oh, this turn I'm gonna do this one. This one I need a little healing. And then 5 and 6 can be combined to Deadly Frostbite. It seems like a Porcupine throwback Mortal Wounds thing whenever you're attacked. So give it language. Whenever an enemy unit deals damage to, friendly BCR unit in melee, roll a dice and on a 4-up D3 Mortal Wounds. So if you're locked in with like everybody for that battle round, when they fight you, they take, they have a 50-50 shot at taking some damage back. And so these 3 are really close to the other ones, except you're getting to pick. And it's the closest to what it could be. Or, like Tom started with, the Everwinter could be something completely different entirely, where there's almost like a Tides of Death. Whereas there's this Everwinter like slowly like pushing its way onto the battlefield, and things start ramping up, like, the visibility decrease round 1, and then round 2 maybe -2 movement for your opponent's guys trudging through snow, but you're fine. And then, round 3 you start healing and you're invigorated by the so there's a lot of ways you could go with it.
Yeah.
For every round after the first, the winds pick up and they have -1 to shoot.
I mean,
-1 to hit and range attacks.
We don't think screw over shooting so hard. I mean, Sylvaneth exists. I don't think we need to double
screw them.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, like, you could think of this like a Blood Rights table, right? Where it's not the tide coming in and out, it's the winter setting in, right? And there's just so many. Yeah, there's just so many different easy things that you can pick out here. You can imagine like icy ground, -1 to run and charge for the enemy units. You can imagine like strong headwinds, like -1 to it would just -1 is fine, like -1 to hit with shooting attacks, right? You can picture like the cold that heals them. So sure, like during that round, everybody heals a D3. You could like there's just so many easy low hanging fruits here. Right,
screaming blizzard. So now you can't. You have to shout your spells, and you get -1 or something. You have to reroll success.
No, you're so many different reroll successes.
Yeah.
Well, like you could do like round 4 or 5 could be a really fun one. That's like like howling storm or something.
Howling gale.
Sure, there you go. Where it like halves the range of all command abilities that have a range, right, of enemy command abilities, because they literally can't, their troops can't hear them anymore, right? So suddenly you've got to be much closer to use Inspiring Presence and stuff like that. It'd be an interesting way to let them actually then theoretically get at battle shocking units off, because suddenly their commander's out of range.
Yeah. I got an app for that in the command traits, so that was good as we move into those. So command traits, put them in the recycling bin, everyone.
They're all gone.
They're all gone because currently you only take Everwinter's Master so that you have at least a reroll on that table.
Right.
But I'd like to see these represent the lore a little bit. Represent the Alfrostun that the army is from in some way, and they list 8 of them in the book. And I don't think they should be full-blown enclaves or clans or storm hosts. Like, not everyone should get stuff like that. But a command trait to represent which one the leader is from, I think is a good split the difference, especially since we can have a clean slate with command traits, because we lose nothing of value is lost when you put them all in the trash. And so Svard, Alverston, and Olweir both have mega battalions already that detail what they're about.
Okay.
And so we can table those. And now there's 6 choices left, and they always want 6, so you can roll for them if you hate freedom. And so to leave room for your own, because there should be room for your own My Dudes Alfrestun, right?
Sure.
You can nix Vinterbad because it's canonically a Chaos Alfrestun that has like Chaos symbols on it and doesn't play well with necessarily how GAs work. So we have 5 plus choose your own.
Gotcha.
And so these are straight out of the book and lore. So we have Olgost, which is an Alfrestun that currently wanders the Crypt Weird Wastes. They're desert nomads whose beasts are weighed down with excessive scavenged meat. And so this would be the +1 wound on general one, but also +1 wounds healed from healing effects received or given. Iroth, which is another one. They're caught up in Gordrak's Wa in the stories. And so they're a little crazy from it. And so you start the battle with +1 command trait, and the general has double the number of punches and kick attacks. Because it doesn't really matter and it's silly. So now he's punching and kicking 6 times. This doesn't work very well with the gingerbread man because he doesn't have punches and kicks attacks. But nothing does.
Right now he doesn't.
Just nothing does. Yeah, maybe he does have punches and kicks. Maybe that's their thing. They're just spinning around like Bart. Anyway, Sylvanhang is the 3rd choice. They're from the Jade Kingdom. And they're, according to the lore, the hungriest Alfrestun, which is kind of impressive. And we'll say they can reroll Earth-Shattering Charge or Frostwreath Ice damage for their mount. Right on. This is when the Thundertusk gets charted, he does a D6 or a D3, and then the Stonehorn Chart is the D6 damage one. There's the Freya Raid, which they are cloaked in freezing fog. They're ghostly killers hidden in perpetual white. So maybe the range of enemy abilities and missile weapons that target BCR units is limited to 18 as long as the general's alive, which is the exact range of a Frostwreath Ice. In the first battle round, maybe the limit is 12. Now, this is annoying for people, but I think it fits what the Freya Raid is supposed to be about, so we're fine with it. And then there's Jarkan Raid, led by the Storm Speaker, and they are supposedly able to fully control their Everwinter. So this really depends on what we do with Everwinter, but we'll give them some modicum of control over it. Maybe they choose the order you get the things, or whatever, what have you. Yep. And then there's the My Dudes Alfrestun. We'll call it maybe Terrifying Alfrestun or something like that. And enemy units within 6 inches of the general may not benefit from Inspiring Presence. Yep. I like the idea of these guys having an inspiring presence breaker. Like they need an interesting horde breaker ability, right? Yeah. And so that'd be the command traits. They're like little mini clans in a way, but they're flavorful. They tie directly into what the stun is supposed to be about, and all the abilities are like kind of good. And it's not I don't think anyway that there's an obvious best choice, like an evergreen just best choice. Which is currently the case, actually, for a lot of armies, to be perfectly honest. Command traits are usually like there's a good one and then the rest are bad. Sure. Mm-hmm. Kind of same with artifacts, in a way. Usually you have like an evergreen good artifact, and then one that's more corner case, but still could be good with synergy, and then the rest of them are just like realm artifacts that you should choose anyway. Right. Subpar realm artifacts. So as we're in this sort of allegiance and these kind of parent abilities, we need to ask the most important question, okay? Like, Joe, this is the question of the hour we have to answer, because as we all know, and we did this last week with everything, what's your new terrain piece / endless spells, prayers, whatever? What's that look like? You getting that stuff? Well, I will answer it, but first, okay. No wizards. Right on. Like, we don't have wizards, and we don't have wizards in the lore, in the stories, in the flavor of it. It's very shamanistic, sure, and priestly, and it just doesn't jive with the lore of it. And not everyone needs wizards. I know we're in malign sorcery, but it doesn't just have to be no wizards because you hate them so much, like Khorne. So, well, we kicked the door open now for endless prayers. Apparently, with I had a different answer for this, and then Khorne's like, "Nah, you get them. They're endless." And I'm like, "Oh, we have endless prayers are on the table. Well, then sure, all right, easy enough." So yeah, endless prayers. you could very easily think of like barriers and stuff like that, but I don't think that necessarily jives real well with what the play style is. And you got to think of like what the intended play style of the army is, and you look to what battalions they have made and what their abilities are, and you kind of try to get a sense for what they intend you to play it like. So nobody liked 4 Thunder Tusks, but one of the main battalions is called Torbad, and it requires you to take 4 Thunder Tusks. So in a certain sense, it seems like that's intended in a way. Now maybe everyone hates it, maybe you want to move away from that, but there it is. And the Yorobad and the Eurobad battalions are all like, you take a Stonehorn Beast Riders, you take a Husk Guard, you take some Mournfang, and then you just run across the table, smash in, do some damage, and then just sit there living and like grinding them down. Possibly like the ideal play or the intended playstyle for Beastclaw is maybe like Tom's favorite army, which is like you're supposed to run across the table, lock him into combat, and just not die, reflecting mortal wounds and doing 3 damage every once in a while until the game is over. So maybe the new book comes out, we'll have a new convert. Who knows?
No, it's possible. The irony to this statement, though, is that I played at Adepticon when I took that army. I played in round 4 three Thunder Tusk Stonehorn. No, I'm sorry, it was a double Stonehorn, double Thunder Tusk.
Okay.
And then a bunch of Savage Orcs. And I just like moved my wall of Chaos Warriors up and just ground through everything. I tanked all 4 of the monsters top of one. And that was the game. Was that I just let them beat on me. I took a bunch of wounds off of them, so nobody got good snowballs, and everybody was outside 18 inches. And that was the entire game, was me punching them with Chaos Warriors and them feebly hitting at 3-up reroll 1s saves on 3-up reroll 1, 5-up, 5-ups.
Yeah, because Chaos Warriors have a 5-up against mortal wounds.
Yes, and the Harbinger has a 5-up that he shares with him as well. That's after save. And
4 Thunder Tusks, even at full life, and even hitting on 2s, like it's actually more likely than not that you miss with 1 out of 4.
Well, and you know what the big FU to the whole deal was? Is that they were like, one was running, like obviously one of the Stonehorns had the Battle Brew, the other one had like the general trait that like enraged them or whatever that gives them bonuses to wound.
Yeah. Wild Fury. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they're like, oh, he's like, I'm gonna grind you down, and it just kicked back more mortals from the Chaos Warriors. And so because all 6 pluses to wound kick back mortals from the battalion, and so his bonuses to wound actually made him take more mortal wounds. And then I saved out of all of them because it's on the wound save, and then I would just save out all the damage.
Right. Yeah. Because when taken one way, you do 12 mortal wounds when you have 2 Thunder Tusks. That's really good. But when considered a different way, you're spending 760 points on 12 damage. And so if you're shooting 60 grots, like, yeah, they're mortal wounds, but a lot of times it's just damage. And that's not a good ratio, especially against guys with a 5-up mortal wound save. So your 6 becomes 4. You're paying almost 100 points per point of damage, and that's a real bad return, even at range, to say nothing of when they get hurt. So, and
heaven forbid they're shooting like Hagnar or something like that, which is like a 5-up with 30 bodies per unit.
Yeah,
we're like, they're like, okay, fine, as many snowballs as you want to throw, I'm cool.
Yeah, or death, for instance.
Sure,
like, I could target the massive regiments and do nothing, or I could shoot Nagash and do 3. Right, and then he heals it. Like, so, yeah.
What about a long, thin, and like endless prayer that's sort of ever increasing spikes of ice?
Oh yeah,
they could prayer. Yeah, right. So like kind of a thing that travels out before them. That's like, and it's like it could both do some wounds on the setup and then be an actual barrier. You can picture what I'm saying, right? Like it doesn't move. It's not predatory. It just literally is like you rip up like a series of spikes, right?
Yep. Yeah, like a really really big frost wreath ice that stays there because it's so huge and it creates like a tunnel or something. Or the lore talks about I believe it's called winter spirits and angry ghosts and stuff are suffused inside the Everwinter, and it's spooky in there. There's spirits and ghosts, and there's like a god. There's like a lesser god of like evil and spirits that one of them made a deal with in some lore that goes back to like originally why they're cursed with the Everwinter. One of the reasons, and they list a bunch because you want to be general about it in these things, is they freed the spirit by accident when they came upon a cache of Nagash's hidden artifacts in a tomb, and they broke it open, and it freed this winter god. But he was really evil, and he was a cursed spirit, and so he was really happy that they freed him, and so he gave them his greatest gift, which is the curse of the Everwinter. And so
Nice.
to them it's a curse, and to him he was trying to help them. And so maybe they summon like spirits out of the Everwinter with these prayers, and it's this big like scary winter spirit or something, and it's a endless does something.
I love that because that's super unexpected too, right? Like that's a neat take. We haven't seen enough like ethereal type of like, I don't necessarily just mean ethereal like the rule.
Right.
I mean ethereal like, ghostly type of things that aren't dead. Right. And as longtime D&D players, we know there's plenty of sort of ghostly wisps and fae and things of that nature in the world that are using that same aesthetic. Right. And so it'd be cool to play with that stuff. Yes. Immaterial. Thank you. Great way to say it.
Yeah. As
incorporeal.
Mephisto points out, I'm not hating on death. It's just in my immediate play group, it's Ironjaw's, Death, and Sylvaneth. So it's like what I always play against. And on really, if you're going to play 5 rounds in a tournament, you're probably going to play against Death. So
yep.
Tends to be where some of my references come from. I'm not ragging on them.
But it's okay to hate them. They are the winningest army now, so it's fine.
Sure, yeah. Just don't. Let's not
change hosts of the current season.
That's
well. It is better to lift others up than tear a few down, and so maybe less calls for nerfs at the top and more like, maybe Dispossessed. Maybe Dispossessed is the natural predator of Daughters of Cain if it was a real army instead of a joke, right?
Sure.
And so maybe like reissuing all these battle tomes for like ancient armies and making them good. Well, maybe some of them are just like naturally part of the meta, like strong against death or strong against somebody or so forth. We only really
I think that's certainly the case.
We only really saw Nagash run wild when KO's entire army of Ren 2 shooting went away.
Right.
Yep.
And so, I think it's a double whammy of being really strong, but also their predators got edged out of the ecosystem. So
I'm not gonna lie. Like looking at the current meta, I'm real tempted to do my mixed order again, like a modified form, just because against the top tables, like man, just down the line, whether you're doing Doc, he's doing the counter punch army, or doing Nagash, like you can, there's some meat there, is what I would say.
All right, so let's keep going on BCR. Let's keep fixing them. What else we got?
Not everybody needs summoning, but it'd be nice. Well, okay, there is a way in which it could make sense. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And that is, we don't really control our Yetis necessarily. They are drawn to us because of the Huskard prayer stuff, the shamanistic stuff. And so maybe the Yetis are the things that are summoned or can get brought in from table edges in a ghoulish kind of way,
I'm down with that.
So there's an option. Maybe it's a prayer to do that. Maybe it's part of something else. Maybe it's a battalion, whatever. But I think there's an option there to talk about or to consider, I guess, because it's not too deep. Like, let's summon Yetis. What else do you need? Well, winter points, right? It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be too, the same with everyone. But
no, so they're attracted to the priests and to the stuff. How you do that is simply this. So if you've made the Huskarls true priests, every time they successfully cast a prayer on a natural 6, it attracts, X number of Yetis or whatever.
There you go.
And so then you just tie it directly to the mechanic, no extra rolling. If you roll a 6 on that prayer, it actually attracts more Yetis to the storm.
Yeah.
Sure,
good point about those
Yep.
Huskards on Thunder Tusks. I want to get to those briefly, but before that, plastic Yetis, please.
There you go. Yeah. Let's assume there's some new kits here. So plastic Yetis are happening.
Yeah. Plastic Yetis, they're supposed to be actually so terrifying. In their lore, they're described very interestingly, where they're these like 9-foot tall, abominable, Yeti creatures, but they move completely silently through the blizzard. They're like snow owls, and they have a jumping range relative to their height of grasshoppers. So they're jumping like 50 feet in the air completely silently and landing near you with no sound. It's terrifying. And I think the models should be something, to represent that. But so for new kits, it'd be nice to have a hero on a Mournfang, That could be cool. It'd be nice if we had a named hero in the army, like a unique one, even though more or less like named unique heroes aren't very good because you can't give them artifacts just in the game.
Sure.
But there's definitely exceptions. All those exceptions are wizards. So there is that. But, it'd be nice to have a hero with a name. We have plenty in the book. So, they could choose Baragot, the original one, or, Sfard or whomsoever.
Well, it's also notable that, by the way, both things you just proposed don't actually require new kits. They just require new war scrolls.
Yeah,
right?
just do a war scroll and have the guy always,
In the same way, the Lord of Afflictions is just a dude built out to the Puscoils kit, right? Or whatever. There's no, or Prince Vorderai is just the zombie or the vampire lord on Zombie Dragon, right? There's not like a Prince Vorderai kit, right? This is it's just, here's the existing kit. Now there's also an option of a named guy. Boom, done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What you do is you do a named guy on Thunder Tusk or on Stonehorn, and then you do a named guy on Mournfang, and then you do a generic hero on Mournfang, so that when you get that kit, you can build both of them. Right. And then
not to use the unique one and use the artifact one instead.
Right. Yeah. So that you don't waste models in that kit, which is the problem with the
Lord of
the Puscoils.
Yeah.
The Lord of Affliction.
Because you don't want just this bad hanging, right? With just one. Yeah.
I still think they need a new kit.
The Mournfang kit? I mean, the Mournfang kit's okay.
No. I'm just saying in general, I think BCR needs a new kit.
Okay.
And I think what they need to build that out is actually, and people aren't going to like this, I think there needs to be you need to take that hunter here.
Wow. The people were not going to like him so much that he DC'd.
That's right. The internet stopped you, Tom, from saying your idea. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. My idea is that you take the idea of the hunter hero and you blow that out into an additional like troop box. And so by making you take that fine cast hero, right? And you roll him into a box, okay? A multi-build plastic kit of other foot ogres, right? That are hunters. And
so and basically instead of a hero, Icebrow hunters, let's just call it that. And it's a 3 model kit that they're a pack of hunters who wander on foot. Right.
Yeah, they got big fur. They look like Mongolian raiders.
Yeah, I like that. And then what you do is they don't deploy normally. They always in ambush, or they're always popping up places, and that's part of the default scroll. They have short to mid range attacks, so they're gonna pop up and shoot. And then they probably when they pop up, they come in just like the Gryph-hound drops in with the Castellant. When they pop up with their cats, their saber-tooth cats. And so you a set unit of them is 3 hunters and 3 cats. And so what you do is because you look at the Squig Herd unit, right? The Squig Herd unit is both goblin herders and squigs.
Sure.
And so what you do is you do 3 cats, 3 hunters. So each of the hunters has a cat.
And by the way, this doesn't invalidate the hero. You could still have a hero version of this. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, and he can build out of this kit.
I think it's cool. I like it.
And it stays within theme of what they are and the hunter aspect, and it gives them some bodies because you're getting 6 models for however many points. Because you're
3 dudes, 3 cats. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know. Just a thought.
No, I like that. I agree. I think that's cool. One last thing, I think maybe they need to address, or maybe they don't care. Maybe we don't care about. So the Thunder Tusk problem, it's no fun to play against, or it sucks. There isn't really much in between there. And it's also really hard to balance 6 mortal wounds on a 2-up at 18 inches. It's hard to figure out what that should cost, in a way.
Here's my answer. Have you read the scroll for Warp Lightning Cannon yet?
The new one?
Yeah. It doesn't. They don't care. It's fine.
All right.
They clearly don't care.
Yeah. I think Huskard's on Thunder Tusk should be priests, obviously, with a prayer, and then we'll have a prayer book of just, the standard stuff, whatever. There's an offense one, there's a defense one, maybe there's endless prayers, something like that. But I think it should be a totem, and it's different than all other totems because it doesn't have to stick it into the ground because it's on a woolly mammoth. And so you can be a totem that's kind of moving around and give us a buff. in the army, like a buff. That would be
Sure.
cool.
A buff, just a synergy.
buff.
Yeah, something.
Yeah,
Maybe
a
his
command
neg
ability would be nice too.
Maybe his neg 1 to hit aura is an aura instead of like just on him, or whatever would have you. Yeah, you were gonna say command abilities, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Command
like they
abilities would
need
be
command
nice.
abilities.
Currently,
Yes.
we have one command ability, although we kind of don't. It's bellowing voice. What you do is you spend a command point in the hero phase, and then people within a radius of him get to reroll failed charges. And onwards to victory is strictly better than this, because you do it after you do it in the charge phase after you've already rolled. And so, like, while it was nice to get the default,
Spiderfang are like this. Spiderfang have the same problem. Like their one command ability is this also. Like after, like you roll, you get grant reroll charges before the charge happens.
Yeah, which is a little awkward.
To one unit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so while we technically have one, we basically don't. And it would be nice to have some command abilities. So there's that too. Somebody mentioned an Everwinter endless spell or an endless prayer that like represented the Everwinter. I think the Everwinter
I think terrain piece as well was the question.
Yeah,
right?
or terrain piece that you put down.
Sure, like a big
like
glacier.
Like a giant ring of frost, and you move the whole ring up or something. I don't know how it would work. The Everwinter is supposed to be really big, and you're kind of like going to your opponent. So I guess I don't know. Some giant shrine with a bunch of meat on it or something. I don't know. A glacier. And then you could have little models trapped in there and do a big pour, and you could have the most hilarious, kit bashing, resin pour experience ever. That would be kind of funny. I don't know what it would do, but I don't know. Does everyone just get terrain pieces now? Is that really the world we're in?
It feels like it's going to be a situation where 4 out of every 5 armies released have a terrain piece.
Okay.
Have a something.
Sure. Well, considering
but that doesn't mean it needs to be a thing that's set up round 1 or that's always there. Like you could do it in different ways, right? There's lots of design space here to explore in a thing that could show up.
Like when we kill a monster, we can plant this giant thing with a whole bunch of meat on it. We just gutted him. And now this is him, and it gives us a bonus like right there on the table or something. Like you just you're whalers and you got the whale, and now it's like it could be something like that.
It's like a barbecue pit.
Yeah, a big barbecue pit. Oh, I remember your Gutbusters barbecue.
You're always trying to sneak in this barbecue pit, Tom.
Doom hated it. A lot of people really shied away from that one. Maybe it's a little silly, I'll say. But, they do talk about cook fires in the law. It's canonical. Yeah. They do that.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
No,
but Bone Splitter's thing is monster hunting. That's really their central allegiance. So I don't want to step on too many toes here.
I think the Fire Slayer one needs to be a volcano that gets summoned.
Yeah. And I think their Magma Rush should be good.
Agreed.
I think they should be the water balloons filled with lava that they...
water balloons filled with lava.
They just run into massive regiments, they die and explode, and there's just lava everywhere. Like that's
Well, and I think this relates to BCR. Like I think Fire Slayer should be literally the floor is lava game. And I think that BCR is like literally like, hey, look, everything is a blizzard.
Yeah,
everything's frozen.
Cool. That could be real cool. And
all right.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, what else do we want to fix? What else still needs to happen here?
What else still needs to happen? After the allegiance abilities and all that, artifacts. I mean, like they suck, but they're fine. We have realm artifacts now. I don't need to spend time on it.
We can make a few good ones in there, of course. We'll throw some stuff that's more thematically appropriate and on par with current what we would expect. Done.
Yeah. The battalions need work. We'll just say redo them. Most of them are terrible. You can't place Svard in a 2,000 point game. Olweir is too expensive. Yorlbad does stuff that your guys already do, and whatever. And they're all like 100 points overcosted, if we're going to be honest. But
I mean, let's just say they all become like modern battalion design, right? Like some of this stuff is just it needs to be brought up to current design. We don't need any great tricks here. Like you could have a couple different small battalions that roll into a mega that just fit within 2,000, like they did with like happens with spiders in the Goblin book or whatever, right? The new Skaven book's much the same, like this kind of stuff. Where it's just, this simple stuff. Just don't do it like Stormcast, where all the battalions are full of bad units or bad combinations or don't do anything good, right? So like that was the mistake. They had the right idea. Like the idea in the Stormcast battalions are good. Execution's poor. Now we're getting both in the newer book. So just do that. Just do that thing. Easy.
Yeah. And I think you should I think they should look at all the units in the army and ask themselves the question, what is what's this unit's job?
Mm-hmm.
And if they can make a war scroll that at least tries to do that, we'd be on a big, it would be much improved. Like Mournfang should be hammers or anvils, or they
One
should,
of the two.
or they should be both and grindy, but can kind of live, like maybe evocators or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of other choices. Evocators are real strong, so maybe not real strong, but Icefall Yetis are annoying and tricky. Frost Sabers are there to die and waste a combat phase of your opponents. Like, time is a resource, and so Frost Sabers are meant to steal one block of that time.
Right.
Maybe they should be actually good. Who knows? Gingerbread Man needs a total redo. And yeah, we talked about the rest of the stuff. So, Stone Skeleton, I think, should be a 6-up Shrug normally, and a 4-up if you're Beastclaw faction.
Sure. So that way you can't take it out of faction and get the
bonus.
And
it basically does the same thing, only a little better as a 4-up, without math and without the 1 damage things actually just being immune to it.
Right.
So it's kind of it's faster. There's no math involved. It's a little better.
This is a dice game. You get to be interactive defense. Yeah.
And there you have it.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think you could supplement this with a few, like you could do kits like the Icebrow Hunters that Tom mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be perfectly doable. I think the one kit I wouldn't want to see here, I think we've solved the bodies problem with the sort of like large and in charge rule, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think this army needs like some kind of weird horde running around. Like,
I don't want
this
a bunch
be
of snow grots.
Right.
I don't want that.
No. I think that like let this be the elite army. That's its character, right? It is the elite ogres riding these big monsters. Good. Okay. Let's do that, but still have it be able to compete. Just compete. That's all. We're not, again, I agree with that perception. We're not looking to make the best, right? But like there are, if you look at like the army itself, certainly I have to imagine, I don't know what this is. I have no good ideas for this, but come on, when you're talking about like this snow themed Everwinter, fleeing from sort of force, like there's got to be another kid in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's just something.
Well, and what I would say is
the same guy, some cats and some Yetis, like,
right.
The other half of this is that like I think this is a general change that we need to start seeing, and I don't know if we will, is that I think priests, like when we have the priest idea deployed, especially in armies that don't have access to magic, I think they need to have a better ability to get rid of endless spells. So not just unbinding, but also have the ability to remove endless spells.
Yeah, to actually dispel.
Like to true dispel. And I think that needs to be baked into priests. So like your whether it's this guy or whether it's your rune master, rune smiter, rune lord, like all those guys that are like those armies don't have endless tools. Like you just bake it, you roll it into priests and give them that.
Maybe that's in their prayer. Maybe it's not even a game-wide thing. It's just in their prayer book. I mean, well, obviously that won't work in retrospect, but for the armies that like Fire Slayers, Dispossessed, BCR, that's just one of the prayers is like, you use this prayer and you can unsummon,
right. Because a lot of them have, I mean, that's the right answer. There's a lot of them have a generic, like prayer list. Like I think about Dispossessed have the ability to do like a 6-up after save or increase red by 1.
Sure.
Create another bullet point that just says dispel endless spell, remove an endless spell within 18 inches range.
Sure.
What if it was really cool and then on a 6, it can't be resummoned next turn?
There you go.
Ooh.
Right. Oh, yeah, there you go. That's cool. So like it's a normal 3-up prayer.
Not this battle round or whatever.
Yeah. It's a normal 3-up prayer or whatever it prays on to remove the spell. Right. But then also if you roll a 6, it cannot be resummoned in the next hero phase or something.
Yeah.
In the enemy's
next hero phase. Yes, right. Yeah.
Because the outcome oftentimes with unsummoning endless spells is that you actually shouldn't, even though you don't want them to be around, is you're almost helping them half the time.
Right.
You can unsummon the comet, cool. Now you get to
just comet you again, yeah.
Right.
Or Geminids or the portal.
Like a mushroom, all of them.
You're almost giving them an extra spell next turn. Like what I unsummon portal, and Nagash is like, oh cool, I have +1 spell this round. Because I get to put it in a better place now, and I don't have to unsummon mine. So maybe something like that could be a thing.
Yeah, I like that. I really do. No, I dig that. Just and like I like the on a 6 mechanic of it too, because it's like, yep, there's that extra bonus in there too that triggers. Yeah, no, that's solid. And I feel like overall that would make this army, like, let's face it, they're still living in sort of the nerfed situation, at least like, let's say 70%. They're still living in the world where they were nerfed in, right? Like the nerfed world.
Yeah, we got Realm
it was the meta at that time.
That's it.
Right.
So,
Right.
And there's sort of been this roller coaster of shift of like where exactly the expectations of armies are, the capabilities that they have, the versatility of them, the build of them, and stuff like that. So, like 6 mortal wounds to the face. Yeah, sure. Like there's plenty of armies that can generate that kind of heat now, right? Tons. I mean, I mentioned Prince Vorderai earlier. I'll just keep banging on that. Like his dumb mount can just roll up to 8 inches and like, if he's not wounded, just like 2 up or something, 6 mortal wounds. Like he does the same damn thing, right? And then by the way, he gets into you and is a combat monster, right? Or whatever.
And he has a command point and he can fly and he does good damage. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now, he's what,
and an
40. He's what, 40? Well, true. Yeah, he's a 6 after save. And he's what, 40 points more than one of your big guys? Is that right? What
60? So yeah, he's 40 more.
Okay. Or 480, I think he is. I don't know, something like that. He's in that range. I think he's 480. Yeah. So 60 points more than your big guy. There you go. Yeah.
That's a lot for 60 points.
He's really packing the value into that 60 points. Yeah, he really is. Yeah. Flight and being a wizard and having a command ability and
speaking of
general butt kicking.
Speaking of 60 points, Frostlord should be 400 points so that Gutbusters can ally them in because ogres hang together.
There you go. Yes.
Support each other.
Dig it. I like that very much. Yes, I agree. It just feels like a fun thing that should happen, right? Yeah.
They've let us use their butcher for our whole time sucking, and so you can use our Frostlord when we get a new book.
Turnabout is fair play. I agree. Yeah. All right. Any final points we want to make on this BCR before we send them off into the winter storm?
Yeah. Their kits are wonderful. They're real fun to hobby on. I think it's a cool concept for an army. You take something like a big 8-foot tall sumo wrestler, Mongolian raider army like Gutbusters, and then you're like, no, this isn't big enough. We need them all riding woolly mammoths and garage-sized, like monster trucks, living monster trucks made out of stone. Like that's fun, and their play style is fun. I think their rules should be on the level, and so yeah,
I agree.
That's my cause.
It's also such a new player friendly army because it wants to be fast, it wants to be aggressive, it doesn't require a huge number of models. Like it's the kind of thing that you can see somebody young who's just getting into the game, like walking into the store and being like, "Oh my god, that is so sweet."
Yeah,
right? Like just seeing these big giant mammoth with these giant tusks and ogres on top, like holy crap, that's cool.
Yeah, and we just made for Timmy's iron rake where they walk into it and then it hits them in the face.
Right.
We just don't want to do like that. This is so. Oh, they suck so bad. All right.
Right. Yeah, and that's another good point. Actually, I agree with Simon. Like painting wise, they use a lot of simple techniques like washes and dry brushing on all like their fur and stuff. Yep. Works really well, so they can be a really positive hobby experience too. Yeah, where somebody gets them and feels like they made them look good.
Yeah, I learned to paint miniatures on a Mournfang, and it's got skin, it's got leather, it's got a face, it's got metal, it's got tusks and skulls and bones, it's got fur. I mean, it has like all the material types that you kind of want to learn, and so it's a great starting army to not be afraid of flesh, which is a trap that some people can get into when they're just starting an army. They're like, oh, I don't want to do faces, I don't want to do skin, and it's just good to get over that hump as soon as possible.
Well, I will also say ogre faces are like the most forgiving faces to paint because they're so big and they're like all the ridges are so well defined and deep,
and they're supposed to be super ugly, so you make a mistake and well, now it's like, he's supposed to be ugly, it's fine. I mean, these are guys who sheath their swords into their skin because it doesn't even matter and they don't even care. Like I think that's on the cover of the book, is a guy who sheathed his sword like through his stomach. He's just like, I have 6 wounds. That's just how it is. And so, they're going to have a lot of pock marks and scars and everything all over their flesh. And so there you go.
Nice. All right. Well, there you go. That's Beastclaw Raiders. They're fixed. Now we have officially fixed Warhammer. So thank you very much, Haywo. I appreciate you coming on and doing this. This has been great.
A pleasure.
Absolutely. We will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, or I should say same rat time. same rat channel, as we'll be turning to the Skaven. But this has been great. I'm so glad that we got a chance to do this. So I do hope to see this kind of thing happen next year. So this is the year, GW. Make it happen. They had a book, fix it. There we go. All right. For everybody out there, thank you very much for watching. We certainly appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.